Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 81. Did you catch up so soon? Shang Ming turned his head and glanced at the explosion in the air, and said secretly, at this level, it is indeed a big advantage to be able to fly. Raiden bastard. You've memorized me. I'm your worst rival. The final first place is definitely mine. Bang Hao shouted incomparably arrogantly at Shang Ming's back, and the explosions and flames in his hands added a lot of momentum to him. Quote. Shang Ming just smiled and said secretly. If you don't have a coin on your body, otherwise a super electromagnetic cannon will knock you down. Speaking of this, he was a little depressed. Coins and steel balls can also be considered equipment. It was also banned by the school on the grounds that in addition to personal clothes, equipment should not be carried. He understands the reason, but in this way, he will be very uncomfortable, because all his current long-range attack methods need the assistance of these things, and they are two extremely important moves. Seriously, if he hadn't mastered the lightning flash and nirvana in time, then he really wouldn't have the confidence in this sports festival, and he would compete for the first place with Bang Zhao and Bang Hao. Hey, say 1,000, say 10,000, or your own strength is insufficient, so you need to rely on these things. Shang Ming sighed. At the same time, he is already close to the end of this second level, and Blasto has already flown to almost the same position as him. I'm the number one. Behind the two of them, Scorch, who was calmly and firmly in third place, had convinced himself that he didn't need to fight for the first place in the first race, just the top three. But at this moment, there were screams one after another behind him. Green Valley. Boom slid forward on the frozen steel rope and looked back suspiciously, which was amazing. What's the situation? How does it look so like Shang Ming? That's right, at this time, Midoriya was also like Shang Ming, running at high speed on the steel rope with an electric current wrapped all over his body, but he was covered with a green electric current. I said it, Boom classmate. I'm going to do my best for this exam too. Midoriya shouted as he looked at Bang Scorching with a determined face, and his words were broadcast live to everyone's ears via satellite. I have to say that the world is really unpredictable. The wave of 100,000 volts that went up before actually made the Green Valley boy master the skill of exerting force within the tolerance range of his body and advance in despair, which is the so-called 5% of the body. Tut, this aura. It's literal. Don't think. Looking at the Green Valley that was getting closer and closer, Bang Jiaoling could no longer maintain his original calmness, and the right half of his body once again exuded an icy cold air. He can accept to give up the first and second results. After all, he is not good at speed comparisons, although he is unwilling, but he is barely acceptable. But no matter what, he will never allow himself to fall out of the top three. Never. A large amount of ice mist was released in front of the blast, and in the blink of an eye, an icy path was formed that stretched out and connected all the earth pillars in the way. Although this will prescribe a prescription for those who come after, but now is not the time to think about it. Under the high pressure of Midori Valley, the young man in the heart no longer dared to let go, and began to slide forward with all his strength again. The situation became tense in an instant, and the pictures on the two big screens on the sports field were directly fixed on these two groups of people, because it was obvious that the four of them were the highlights of this competition. At the same time, the first echelon of Shang Ming and Bang Hao have successfully passed the second level and began to fight each other on a spacious flat avenue. To be more precise, it was Bang Hao who relied on the advantage that his body began to heat up, and constantly attacked Shang Ming. Boom, boom, boom. A series of powerful explosions along the way blew up potholes along the road, accompanied by the wild laughter of the villain boss. Wah! Raiden bastard, be blown away by me. It's definitely me this time. As he spoke, he slammed over again, and pressed down with one palm on Shang Ming. But Shang Ming was not a person who was beaten and didn't fight back, and it was another electric fist. Boom! Flames and lightning erupted between the two teenagers again. What? Bang Hao, who was violently pushed by the smoke and air waves for a distance, was just about to stabilize his body and follow up, when he suddenly rushed out of the smoke with a dazzling golden light. Annoying. Bang! In the next second, he was unexpectedly bursting with a bang, and he was turned on again with the electric flash of Shang Ming, and he smashed his electric leg on his chest and kicked his whole person out. Whoa! Then Shang Ming didn't stop at all, and under the gaze of the scorching freeze and Green Valley in the rear, he directly turned into a golden afterimage and continued to rush forward. Bang Hao! Midoriya couldn't help but scream in shock when he saw that Bang Hao was wrapped around his body with crackling electricity and flew back upside down in embarrassment. Zero asking for flowers. Shut up, stinky for a long time. Bang Hao, who was kicked back to the second echelon by Shangming, was full of anger at this time, and his expression was even more hideous like a villain, so he didn't notice the abnormality on Midoriya at this time. Golden Retriever bastard. Wait for me. Boom. Bang Hao's hands suddenly pressed together, and then erupted with far more powerful explosions and fires than before, although the huge shock force made his arms ache faintly, but the large amount of adrenaline secreted in his body made him ignore this for the time being. Well, as a result, the entire second echelon has become a situation of Bang Jiao Jelly, Green Valley, and Bang Hao. Judging from the big screen, it can be said that it is quite exciting. This also made all the audience, under the auspices of the microphone teacher, continue to let out bursts of cheers. And Shangming once again occupied a big screen by himself, and came to the third level. That's it. Shangming Electric, the first echelon, has reached the final level. A large minefield. The microphone was introduced again. The staff who set up this area are very careful, and if you look closely, you can find out where the mines are buried. Use your eyes and feet to the fullest. Hearing these words on the radio, the rear stepped on the ice path created by the scorching freeze, and Tetsutsu, Erlang, Iida, 8 million and others, who were still running at the second level, all looked surprised. Has Kaminari already reached that far away? This level is a bit troublesome, I just don't know how fast the explosion will be. Shangming frowned and looked at the minefield in front of him. To be honest, it is indeed easy to distinguish the darker mine sites, but there are too many of them, and the distribution is also disorganized. Forget it, it's too late to think about it, let's go. Hearing the louder and louder explosions behind him, Shangming no longer grinded, and directly turned on the more flexible, high-speed movement, to rush into the minefield, but the speed was not as fast as usual, because he also needed to scan the minefield in front of him with his eyes. Soon, the three of them also came to the minefield. Ha 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 ha. Mines are something, it has nothing to do with me. Boom. Seeing that it was such a level, Bang Hao laughed proudly, pressed his palms back and flew directly into the explosion, and rushed straight to the back of Shangming without hindrance. Raiden bastard. Kill you. Chapter 82. Cut. These two levels are the back door specially opened for Bang Hao. Kamina struggled to push forward, feeling the fierce pressure behind him, and he was also a little unhappy. It seems that I will take some time to study the ability to fly after this. Soon, Bang Hao relied on the advantage of solving the blasting flight and caught up with Shangming again. To everyone's surprise, this time Bang Hao did not attack Shangming below, but continued to fly forward with a breath of air. I'll find a chance to teach the Golden Retriever a lesson later, and I'll get the first place first. Well, it's amazing that he still kept calm at this time, but this time he replaced it with Shangming and stopped doing it, so that Bang Hao could go on smoothly, and the first place would fall to him 9 times out of 10. Flashes of lightning, on. With a roar, Shangming once again turned into a Super Saiyan, covered in golden flames, and then stepped on the buried mine point on the ground, and the next second, boom, a mine exploded, and at the same time, with the help of the power of jumping and air waves, he pushed himself into the air at high speed. 593, you're still far from it. In the big screen, I only saw Shangming in the pink smoke and dust, turning into a golden afterimage, blinking above the right side of Bang Hao. Its speed is really as fast as thunder. Get the hell out of here. As he spoke, a leg wrapped in surging golden flames slammed down on Bang Hao. Guillotine drop. Die. But Bang Hao's nervous reaction was not a joke, even if Shangming's speed was so fast that his eyes couldn't see clearly, but his body turned flexibly in midair, and his palms slammed directly over. Boom. Explosion, Big Bang. It's a super explosion of fire and thunder that lights up the entire minefield. Kamime. Panting Ear Lang had just come to the minefield when he saw this scene. Is it Bang Hao? Team leader Iida looked at the sky in the distance in shock. How powerful this is. Quote. Because of the proximity between Bang Jiao and Midoriya, they were directly pushed over by the air wave formed by the explosion, but fortunately, one froze a small piece of the ground, and the other flexibly backflipped to stabilize their figures. It's too much, these two, the boy thought, speechlessly, holding his arm against the smoke and dust. But it's a good opportunity. He didn't stop for long, and when the air wave swept over, he didn't hesitate to directly activate the frozen personality with all his might, paving a safe ice path for himself. At the same time, in order to speed up, he jumped again and stepped on the multiple icicles that kept appearing under his feet, and began to move forward at high speed. Bastard Dad, you can see clearly, even if I don't use your ability, I can still get the final first place. As soon as he thought of Andwa, Bang's blue eyes became extremely cold. I never lose. But at this time, the young man of Midori Valley, who was wrapped with green electricity all over his body, unceremoniously stepped on the multiple icicles created by the scorching jelly, and followed at high speed without hindrance. Sorry, Boom, although it is a bit of an advantage to you. But the Green Valley boy followed behind the scorched cold and said firmly, I also have a reason why I must not lose. At the same time, the scene of Oyu's own hair appeared in his heart. I will never let Olmec down. Whoa, huh. Just when the Boom Boy and the Green Valley Boy, the icicle stream, that kept moving forward one after the other, just came to the bottom of the conflict between Shangming and Banghao, Banghao's figure suddenly came from the thick smoke. And it's fast. Ah, a gust of cold air swept by, and in an instant, a layer of rough ice appeared above the boy. Bang! In the next second, Banghao landed directly on the ice, and its impact force was so great that it even smashed out dense cracks. Pop Chan. When the Green Valley boy saw this scene, his whole heart jumped out, and he jumped up without saying a word, wanting to check on the situation of Banghao. Get out of here, it stinks for a long time, it's in the way. Unexpectedly, as soon as he jumped onto the ice, he was directly pushed away by the angry Banghao, only to see Banghao looking at the golden shadow in the sky viciously. This is the second time. You remembered it for me, Raiden bastard. After saying that, completely ignoring the arms that had begun to tremble, he once again showed his personality and rushed out, but at this time, Bang Jiaoleng took advantage of this opportunity to become the second place again. And Shang Ming. On the ultra-clear big screen, Shang Ming's parents and tens of millions of viewers were surprised to see. After slashing Banghao down, Shang Ming, who was shrouded in golden flames all over his body, did a 360-degree somersault in the air with the help of reaction force, and when he unloaded the power of his body, he regained his body balance again. Then make a standard diving move, and once again turn into an afterimage and rush to the other end of the minefield. The whole set of actions, everyone who watched it was stunned. The boy is his father. Son, he's so powerful. Shangming's mother asked in disbelief. This question, Shangming's father was also silent for a while. How did he know? It was the first time he saw his son fighting. Whoa, oh. Gift. Microphone teacher, holding the microphone and looking at the Aizawa class teacher beside him. Mummy, are your students so strong? How the hell did you teach? His question was transmitted to everyone's ears by dozens of surround speakers. 0. I didn't teach them anything. Quote. Aizawa looked at the big screen calmly and said lightly, it's just that they are talking to themselves and starting to compete with each other. Quote. At this time, the situation of the first ladder is like this. Kamiaki swooped down from the high school with a flash of light, and was at the front, and then he took advantage of the situation to catch up and step on the scorching freeze like an ice dragon's multiple icicles. After that, he fell into a rage, and behind him was the explosion of gunsmoke and fire, and almost at the same level as him, he accidentally comprehended the 5% OFA of the whole body, Midoriya Izuku. Want to snatch the number one from me? Like the sound of a golden meteorite from outside the sky, I thought of the time when I was alone and lonely in the depths of the dense forest of Omiya Park for more than 10 years. Then I have to ask, I once left sweat and refused to say yes. I'm going to be good, and the results of my hard work since I was born won't let me lose here so easily. Soon, Shang Ming's position was only a few steps away from the edge of the minefield, and the height he was at was less than 5 meters from the minefield below, and the Boom Boy was only less than 2 meters away from him. But if it goes on like this, he will 100% fall into the dirt of the minefield because of the stall. It's not over yet. 100,000 volts mouth. Shang Ming was unwilling to lose like this, and directly chose to open the full-screen ultimate, directly casting a large amount of golden electricity in all directions. Crackle. The golden light exploded in an instant, and the dangerous current hit everything around 1.7 wantonly. Crazy. The boy made an icicle in front of him in time, but he still didn't understand the reason why Shangming did this, although it could indeed block him for a few seconds, but he still had to fall to the ground. On the ground. Not good. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as he reacted, the ground around him began to look like a battlefield under shelling, and pink explosions instantly bloomed everywhere. Hee, I know. Won't fall here so easily. With the help of the explosion wave, Shangming Electric, who flipped in the air again and landed steadily on the thunder line, handsomely looked back at the explosion scene behind him, and then turned on the high-speed movement again. Under the excited attention of countless people, they rushed into the final corridor first. By the way, shouldn't I look back at the explosion? Chapter 83. At this moment, the first man to return to the gym. In the Master of Ceremonies, the gift microphone looked at the golden shadow that rushed out of the corridor, and shouted at the microphone in his hand with a high spirit. It's this Shangming Electric. In the next second, the stadium once again resounded with the passionate music that surrounded the entire space, and at the same time, the cheers of the audience soared into the sky like a volcanic eruption. Shangming, Kamime, upper, hey, A1's Shangming Electric, he did what he swore before. Let's continue to see what he does next and see if he can win the first place in the end. Everybody. With his distinctive tone, the microphone continues to stir up the fiery atmosphere. Ah, the sports festival or something, it's so cool. Son, he's amazing. Shangming's mother looked at her baby son who was cheering from everyone below with excitement on her face, and she was really happy at this moment. Shangming's father nodded heavily in agreement. Yes. What an incredible son. At the same time, the secret base of the enemy alliance. A mummified man, who looked very godlike to Aizawa Bandao, stood behind the tall black shadow with the black mist around him, staring at Shangming Electric on dozens of small screens, his eyes full of tyranny. This guy, you remember? Well, that's right, he was the one who had been beaten to a near-death state by Shangming's lightning chain, 500,000 volts, and million volts, and although he was awake now, he still couldn't sleep easily due to the pain. This teenager's personality is used very well, no wonder he can beat you like that. The tall black shadow, who did not shy away from the mood of the death handle, looked at the excited Shangming with great interest, and muttered to himself. Let me see again. Look at, again. Subsequently, Bang Jiao, Bang Hao, and Green Valley rushed out of the corridor almost inseparably, and 3 minutes later, the contestants behind them also returned one after another, and soon the final ranking of everyone appeared on the 4 big screens above. First place, Shangming Electric. Second place, Boom Scorch. Third place, Izuku Midoriya. Fourth place, Explosion of Glory Wins Yourself. Fifth place, Tatsu Shiozaki. Sixth place, Bone Pulling and Routing. Seventh place, Iida Amaya. Quote. Seeing this ranking, the Boom Boy was indifferent, the Green Valley Boy was satisfied, and the boom was booming. Well. Abominable. Again. Bang Hao looked furiously at Shangming Electric, who was chatting with Erlang, 8 million, and Tai Jie with a smile on his face, and his eyes seemed to be about to erupt a scorching flame of horror. Lost to that golden retriever again. Kirishima comforted him on the side. Well, don't be so explosive, the fourth is also good, isn't it? Quote. What a fart. Bang Hao squirted back directly, and then squeezed his fists fiercely with a snap, gritted his teeth and said, I will never admit defeat, never. I'm the strongest. And Iida's squad leader, who has a real speed personality, Engine, is looking at his hands with black lines. It's to lose with this kind of personality. At this time, the teacher, who was the referee at midnight, once again presided over the small microphone in his ear. It seems that in the first grade division, the first project is finally over. At midnight, he shook the leather whip in his hand, pointed to the virtual screen behind him that changed again, and said, then next, the second project. That's it. This. In the next second, on the virtual screen, the words, horse riding battle, appeared. Oh, that looks interesting. Quote. Shangming raised his golden eyebrows and smiled at the corners of his mouth. But the frog-blowing classmate on the side knotted his lips and asked, this is not a personal project, how do you compare it? Let me explain. Quote. Teacher Midnight smiled and turned to look at the big screen, where demonstrations of Only-My-Railgun, gift, and microphone appeared on it in time. The contest requires participants to form teams of 2 to 4 people freely to form a complete horse. Quote. The rules are roughly the same as the horse riding battles that everyone usually plays, the only difference is. After a slight pause, after selling a pass, he opened his sexy lips again and said with a smile, each contestant will be given a score corresponding to the ranking achieved in the previous event. 8,100,000 people with arms crossed in front of him, analyzed. In other words, according to the different staffing, the score of the horse is also different. Quote. Erlang nodded in agreement, and then inadvertently glanced at Kamina, who was smiling beside him. He's still so confident. On the other hand, Mr. Midnight's explanation has finally reached its final stage. As for the number of points given, the last place, which is the 42nd place, is 5 points, and then 5 points are added for each higher place from the back to the front. At this point, her voice suddenly rose high, and she turned her head to look at Shangming playfully. What am I doing? Because he knew that there must be a lot of cameras facing him, he kept a handsome smile on his face, and couldn't help but complain in his heart. And the number of points given to the first place is... The 42 students in the audience were collectively stunned. The smile on Kamina's face froze instantly, and she... What did you just say? Do you mean... Tai Jie turned his stiff neck and looked at Shangming in amazement, but it was okay if he didn't say it. As soon as these words came out, everyone was awakened in an instant. 10 million. The heart of the person turned to look at Shangming, who had a relationship with each other, with a smile in his eyes. That is, just kill this horse, who won first place. Then no matter what the previous ranking was, it can rise to the first place in an instant. The contestants in the audience, whether they were from Class A, Class B, or other subjects, all watched with a prey gaze, eager to watch Shangming. That's right. This is a battle where the higher the ranking, the easier it is to be attacked, and the next gram is a life and death battle. At midnight, the teacher charmingly stretched out her red tongue and licked her lips. Boy, how difficult is this, worthy of your strength. Quote. Shangming doesn't feel funny now, has this completely become the target of public criticism. But when he accidentally found that a big close-up of himself was being given to himself on a large screen at the top of the distance, well. The soul of the second middle school is possessed again. Let the horse come, and I, Shangming Electric, will be your opponent. Shangming put one hand in his trouser pocket, revealing a drag and pull smile, and under the attention of hundreds of thousands of spectators, he provoked all the contestants around him. Anyway, this group of guys is definitely going to target themselves, so why not pretend to be a wave of force? You think you're besieging me? I'm sorry, I'm here to single out a group of you. Chapter 84. Quote. As soon as Shangming's words came out, they were instantly captured by surveillance satellites, and then played on all screens, large and small, for the first time. The audience became silent in the blink of an eye. Quote. Winking face. Shangming's father and mother were also shocked. Isn't this overly arrogant? Whoop. In a few seconds, everyone reacted, and at the same time, people were arguing, especially the contestants around Shangming, who reacted much more violently. Boy, what did you just say? Single-handedly take on a bunch of us. I think you're living in a dream. In the face of the surging accusations and provocations, Tai Jie, Erlang, and the 8,000,003 people were indeed silently guarding Shangming's left and right. How dare you say it, Raiden bastard. Bang Hao clenched his palms inward, looking eager to try, but I don't know why, he actually felt extremely appreciative of Shangming's words. That's why I'm worthy of being my opponent. And the other booming boy, although he was a little surprised by Shangming's words, he didn't feel how arrogant he was. Because if it were him, he was confident enough to face the attacks of others alone. As he once said, the level difference was too far. It's just that, with his character, he can't say it so clearly. Shangming-san feels more individualistic than Bang Chan. Midoriya smiled awkwardly, while worrying about Shangming's next situation. And he was also a little glad that the first place was not himself, otherwise he couldn't imagine how he would face such pressure. Quote. Faced with the situation of being surrounded by enemies on all sides, although Shangming also felt the pressure, his face did not show any timidity, but he did not further stir up everyone's nerves. Well, pretending to be forced or something, it is best to pretend once in the most suitable situation. Soon at midnight the teacher finished explaining the detailed rules of the second competition, and then gave all the contestants 15 minutes to combine. Shangming looked around, then said with a grin, "It seems that only you are willing to team up with me." Quote. 8 million classmates gave him a blank look and said angrily, "You didn't do it yourself." Quote. Erlang is on the side of 8 million at this point. "In that case, then I'll be your horse's front legs." Taijie confidently raised his fist and asked with a smile, "The one with the steel personality is the most impregnable shield wall. I can definitely form an unshakable war horse." On the other hand, Kirishima also happened to use similar words to recommend himself loudly to Bang Hao. I don't know why, these two guys are inexplicably sensitive in this regard, and they turned their heads to look at each other very tacitly. The next second, the two of them pouted childishly and turned their heads, and at the same time, the desire to win in their hearts began to burn. "I'm the hardest war horse." Shangming, Erlang, 8,000,003, watched them compete with each other helplessly, and then Shangming patted Taijie on the shoulder and motioned to follow. "Where are you going?" 8 million asked curiously. "I think we should hurry up and discuss tactics." Quote. "Of course, we need to talk about countermeasures, but we can discuss while charging, right?" Shangming smiled, and then pretended to be distressed and said, "The previous round of the competition has consumed nearly half of my power. If you don't take advantage of the full charge now, you may not be able to last long for a while." Quote. Charging. 8 million, the three of them looked at each other, and then saw Shangming walk up to the midnight teacher and easily applied for a charging request. "Hey, is this okay?" Taijie was stunned, then immediately reacted and asked, "Then can I also apply for iron supplementation?" Iron supplements. At midnight, the teacher didn't understand this, and then he heard Taijie add, "Can you just give me some iron to eat? It's meant to be eaten." At midnight, he pulled a string of black lines on his head, and then asked with a headset, and the answer was quickly given. "Yes, as long as it is necessary for individuality, it is allowed to be provided to you." Quote. Then he pointed to a stout boy in the distance. "Just like the sugar classmate in Class B of the hero course, the rules allow him to consume sugar." Quote. "But you only have 15 minutes of time like everyone else, so you'd better hurry up." Soon, 4 people gathered at the edge of the sports field, one charged with a special generator, one not on the iron sheet that was unloaded from nowhere, and the remaining 2 girls looked at these 2 strange people speechlessly. "Okay, time is running out, I'll talk about the next countermeasures, and the tasks they are responsible for." Quote. With both hands pressed against the engine's roar, and with a dangerous electric current wrapped around his body, he began to get to the point in earnest. "First of all, Taijie, as you said before, you are the front leg of the horse." "Okay, leave it to me." Taijie confidently took the task. "Erlang, you are responsible for the defense on the right side. Once someone approaches, you directly destroy the ground with your personality." "Well, it's like it was in the entrance exam, I see." Quote. Erlang nodded calmly. In the end, Shangming looked at the 8 million and said, "You are responsible for the left side. You have to make a roller shoe for yourself as soon as possible, and then immediately make 100 steel balls for me." Steel balls. Well, understood. 8 million hundred blinked, and instantly understood what it meant. "Are you going to do that, lightning chain, again?" Quote. "Yes, in the face of their group attack, there is still a need for a large-scale defense capability." Shangming nodded, and then added, "That's all for the time being, you can adapt to the rest of the props yourself, I believe you can do it well with your IQ." Quote. "Don't worry." The corners of 8 million hundred mouths curled, revealing a confident and beautiful smile. Soon the 15 minutes were over, and at midnight the teacher was on the stage and she asked all the groups to stand outside the playground and stand by. At the same time, close-ups began to be taken on the big screen to introduce the composition of the competition to all the spectators, who were on site or not on site. The first group, Shangming Electric, Taizhech Iron, 8 million hundred, Erlang Shangshang. The second group, Midoriya Izuku, often dark and yin, Leary Imperial Tea, bright eyes. The third group, Bang Jiaojelly, Iida Tenya, Tail White Ape, Kuchida Koji. In the fourth group, Hiroshi Katsumi, Rijima Kurojima, Hiroshi Fanta, and Ashido Sana. The fifth group, Shoji Mezzo, Frog Blowing Plum Rain, Minoru Minda. The sixth group, The Heart of the People, Shiozaki Tatsu Fujiman, Shotien 2 consecutive strikes, Double Shock, Aoyama Elegant. The seventh group, Bone Pulling and Softening, Leaf Concealment, Sandvine Strength, Bubble Say, Yang Xue, Welding. In the eighth group, Kazuka Kento, Oat, Lu Link Si, Sowling, Nozomi Kanako, Mushrooms, and the tail of the lizard was broken. The ninth group, the Ningrin of the object, the copy, the circle is hardened, the air is solidified, the black dominates, the black is black, the original is swirled, the whirl. The 10th group, the scale of the dragon, the scales, the sash, root, field beast, lang tai, the beast. The 11th group, the horn takes the horn of the horn cannon, the sickle cutting the tip and the blade. The 12th group, small and large size, wear the protection of Jiro, adhesive, blowout of the manga comics. A total of 42 entries were selected. Alright, let's get started. Let's count down to this brutal scuffle. The voice of the microphone teacher was transmitted throughout the venue through the impression from all directions. 3, 2, 1. Midnight teacher flicked the whip in his hand and announced loudly. Start. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 85. Kill them. Bang Hao rode viciously on the body of Kirishima, and roared angrily in the direction of the Shengming group. Not only him, but almost most of them chose to be the first to put the primary target on them. Let you know today, you know. The consequences of being too arrogant. Ha 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 ha, to put it bluntly, this is just a battle for 10 million. Cut, I know. Quote. Kamito wasn't surprised by this, or a little bit of a brain could have guessed it, but he didn't have any fear at all. What to do, Kamime? At this time, 8 million Bai, who had just made himself a pair of roller skates, looked at the enemy group, rushing over with a solemn expression and asked, while Erlang and Tai Jie were also silently listening to his instructions. Of course you have to run. But, after speaking, the corners of Shengming's mouth curled, and a handsome smile appeared in countless large and small screens, and then without saying a word, his hands were on Tai Jie, Erlang, and 8,103,000, and he quickly clapped his palm. Add the buff first. Crackling. In the next moment, the three people who served as the horses under Kaminari instantly entered the state of high-speed movement. Let's go. Don't let them run. Yi Yintu, the only one who teamed up with the members of Class B, rode on the body of the bone puller, and said with great excitement. With the Bang Scorch, 8,100,000 is also a recommended student this year's bone-pulling soft making, nodded a little uncomfortably, and then lightly stepped in the direction of the Shengming group, directly launching his own personality, softening. The trajectory of his abilities is similar to that of a scorched icicle, almost all in a straight line, and spreads out at the end of the day, except that he instantly softens the ground like silt. Unfortunately, it's still too slow. As soon as his ability arrived at the position, the four of them had already left the place in time with lightning and fire, and began to move around the sidelines at high speed. Whoa, oh. The voice of the microphone teacher, full of surprise, resounded throughout the audience again. The speed of the Kaminaki group has become so fast. It turns out that his ability can also be used by others. Well, the last sentence is purely mysterious. He was also the invigilator when he took the entrance exam. However, for the sake of program effect, it can only be regarded as a basic operation. After all, the majority of viewers don't know it, right? Awesome, this ability to increase the beneficial state of a partner is so rare. Forest Kamui, who is currently ranked 8th on the list of Japanese heroes, has taken over the patrol mission entrusted by Yue and is guarding the field with his juniors, Deathfight and Lady Mount. At this time, when I saw this scene on the big screen, I was also appreciative. When he graduates, try to invite him to the office. Compared to the pure newcomer, MT. Lady, the more famous fighting hero, Deathfight, raises a question. I just don't know, how many people can he add this buff to? From now on, it seems that he can give 3 people in one go, and that's enough. Forest Kamui didn't have so many ideas, and began to think in his heart that when the Xiangyang Sports Festival was over, he would submit an invitation to Xiangyang for Shengming's workplace experience. That's him, the funny kid that Midnight Senior said before. Lady Mount looked curiously at the screen on the screen. Not only them, but all the thousands of professional heroes present or absent have begun to seriously assess the speed of the Shengming 4. No one is a fool, and everyone can think of the meaning of high-speed movement. At the same time, inside the arena, Erlang, Shengming looked at the groups of war horses rushing over in a heap and shouted softly. Without saying a word, he used his personality to quickly extend the jack on his earlobe by several meters, and then plunged headlong into the ground on the right. Click. Boom. In the next second, a large area of ground on the right side of the Shengming group shattered as if it had been subjected to an 8 or 9 magnitude earthquake. At this moment, the Banghao group, the Shoji group, the bone-pulling group and others who rushed over suffered from it, if it weren't for the fact that they had received sufficient combat training in the past few months, otherwise there would definitely be a group that broke up directly. And the 4 of Shengming took this opportunity to quickly distance themselves from them. Ha 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 ha. Tai Jie felt the light body, and shouted excitedly with excitement on his face, "Your buff is really cool, so I am a hard and fast man." Ah! Shengming was choked with embarrassment by these words, and the left and right ear Lang and 8 million also threw their eyes away. Shengming, give. At this time, 8 million Bai was pushing Tai Jie on roller skates, and at the same time handed Shengming a bright yellow cloth bag full of steel balls. Yes. Shengming looked at the round steel balls in the bag, and his expression suddenly became joyful. With this, we have a big hole card. Banghao, leave them alone for now. In the distance, Kirishima finally stabilized his figure, looked at the golden light flashing Shengming group, and anxiously suggested, "Shengming, they are too fast, let's grab the other groups first." Damn. Banghao also glared at the Shengming group with an unwilling face, but at this moment, the object room of Class B suddenly swept behind him, and he also took the score on his head. It's too much, from Class A, Ningren Monoma mocked. On the big screen, their scores were also directly cleared, and the ranking became the bottom. What are you talking about, stinky boy? Give it back to me. Be careful that I kill you. At the same time, when the people of Class B found it difficult to keep up with the 10 million point Shengming group, they immediately joined forces and chased and intercepted Team A, which had started a civil war. Soon, Class A except for the Shengming group, the Green Valley group, and the Bang Scorching group, all the scores were cleared. Well, including the mixed bone pulling, Yi Yin's group was also taken away by the mental exercise group. Oh, did Class B join forces? Was it a tacit understanding, or was it premeditated? With the advantage of high-speed movement of all members, the Shengming group, who has been staying at the edge, is happy to see this situation. In this way, most of the pressure brought by 10 million points will be eliminated. At least you don't have to face the siege of groups of 3 or 5. At this time, the Mineta group, who was tragically cleared because he was killed by Shiozaki of the mental exercise group, who stole the scores, unknowingly with his personality, Fujiman, rushed to them without any scruples. In this way, we will have no worries, just snatch their 10 million with all our might. Minoru Mineta, who was shining with tears in the corners of his eyes, gritted his teeth and picked the grapes on his head and pointed at the Kaminaki group and shouted, but he was also recalling frantically in his heart, how did he not have the strap on his head? 10 million, we want it. On the other side, Class B, the only one who didn't want to participate in the joint Kakatori group, relied on his long-range attack ability, and also set his sights on Shengming and them. Their idea is very simple, since they can't catch up, then use the horn cannon to affect the position of the 4 Shengming, and then take the opportunity to take away 10 million points. But at this time, most of Shengming's attention was not on them, because Bang Jiaoling was riding on the Iida squad leader, and Leng Leng was blocking them in front of them. You're fast, but the arena is so big, and you're always on the edges, so it's not impossible to stop you as long as you are in the corner. Quote. And the Iida squad leader under him smiled confidently, moreover, my personality is a real speed system. Interesting. Quote. Kamina smiled, the more times like this, the more important it is to keep a handsome smile, because they will definitely be given a close-up. As a top star is one of his life goals, it is still necessary to pay attention to this aspect. Chapter 86. With less than 5 minutes left, it's time to give it your all. Immediately after that, Bang Jiao Jelly jumped up from Ida's body violently, and then at the moment when he was about to land, a thick icy cold air gushed out from his right foot, and soon a tall icicle appeared on the spot. Hey, hey, hey. At this time, the gift, the microphone teacher, loudly questioned this behavior. He left the war horse. Is this really okay? The midnight teacher standing on the high platform outside the field was also a little hesitant, but according to the rules of the game, it was judged that it was okay. According to the regulations, as long as you don't land directly on the ground and have a certain amount of skill, it's okay. As soon as these words came out, the explosive man in the center of the field who was angry with Monoma Ning's anger sneered maliciously at the corner of his mouth. If so, it's easy. After saying that, He also blasted out of Kirishima's body like a scorching jelly, and then smashed the wall of air that the circle hardened into a blowout with one punch, grabbing the score white strip on the neck of the object like a hungry tiger pounced. And very greedily to take them all. Let's go and stay there. Bang Hao squirted viciously, and then under the shocked gaze of the 4 members of the Monoma team, he turned his head to look at the corner where Shang Ming and the others were, which had been surrounded by a thick wall of ice that appeared at some point. Next, it's Raiden and half of those bastards. Midoriya, what about us? Carrying the Green Valley boy on his back, Chong Dark asked calmly while guarding the surroundings with the shadow monster. Our score is passing, just hold it steady. Midoriya tied the score strip that he had just snatched from the scaly wyvern group in Class B around his neck and whispered back. With the equipment of the classmate Fa Ming, we can fly to the air to defend. Crackling. But at this moment, the annular ice wall suddenly shone with a sky-high golden light, and its brilliance seemed more dazzling even in the daytime. Rewind the clock to a minute ago. With less than 5 minutes left, it's time to give it your all. The indifferent bombardment boy stood high on the icicle and cast a group of icicles that were pushed past by the Shengming group. His intention was very simple, that is, to trap the legs of Tai Jie, Erlang, and 8 million people. We're going to get the scores for both of you. Minoru Mineta and frog-blowing Mayus, Grape Herd, and their incomparably swift pink tongues also attacked Shangming and scorching jelly from the other direction. We don't need that much, 10 million is enough. At the same time, Class B's Kakatori Bonnie said indifferently with the sickle on his back, and at the same time lowered his head and pointed his double horns at the upward Ming group, and the next second the top of the double horns actually emitted a strange light, and instantly turned into 2 energy balls and flew out. However, because of the rules of the game, vicious attacks aimed at crushing the formation of the horses will be shown a red card and punished, so her attack did not directly hit the Nakaru group itself, but attacked from left to right to both sides. Use the air wave generated by the horn cannon explosion to affect their movements. It can be said that her thoughts are the same as those of Bang Scorch. Upper. Seeing this overwhelming dense attack, Erlang screamed worriedly. Ah, leave it to me. Shang Ming's eyes sharpened, and he quickly smeared a layer of weak current on 100 steel balls, and then threw them out without hesitation, and when they were at the right distance and position, he directly spread his arms and cast a dazzling golden current from his hands. Boom! Under the action of electromagnetism, the electric current on both palms blinked and connected with the nearest 2 steel balls, and then spread out in dots and surfaces, and soon 100 steel balls floated around under the support of the current. As a result, a current network of hundreds of linear currents crossed together appeared on the left and right sides of the 4 of Shangming. Bang bang bang, boom. The golden light and thick white fog produced by the meeting of cold icicles and high-temperature power grids overshadowed everything here. Sure enough, if you want to cast this lightning chain, you don't need to generate electricity from your whole body at all, you only need to release the current with your hands. While maintaining the current output in his hand, Shangming quietly looked at the lightning chain that blocked all the incoming icicles, purple grapes, and horn cannons outside. Ah, don't, humph. At this time, the screams of frogs blowing the plum rain suddenly sounded in the field, and then Minoru Minda and the shoji also screamed in pain, and soon fell down as the shoji of the war horse. Well, he was electrosmerized again, and it was still that familiar feeling. Huh. At this time, he condescendingly looked down at the present, and the microphone teacher found out about their situation for the first time. The shoji group has been electrocuted. Their war horse has been defeated. Do you want to be shown a red card and sent out of the game? However, when Midnight Teacher watched the replay, he did shake his head and deny this statement, and then explained into the headset. Just now, Kamina didn't launch any attack on the shoji group, but the frog-blowing classmate of the shoji group, when he launched a frog tongue attack against the Kamina group, he accidentally touched the power grid, and then conducted the current to Minoru Minda and Shijiko Muzo in the same group. After speaking, he threw down the leather whip in his hand and pronounced the sentence. Therefore, the Kaminari group on the defensive side is not responsible. But the shoji group was disqualified from the competition because all the people landed on the ground. Quote, exclamation mark, quote. Hearing this explanation, the gift microphone turned to look at the mummy Aizawa beside him in surprise. Is this okay? Well, the rules are fine. Quote. Aizawa squinted at the lightning chain on the screen and nodded thoughtfully. After all, Shengming's personality itself is electrified. You can't forbid him to defend with his personality, right? Then he continued into the microphone in front of him. And compared to this, I think Shengming's use of the steel ball, made of 8 million white, the trick, power grid, that should be paid attention to. Quote. This is a very imaginative skill, which can be widely used, can be attacked and defended, can be a single group, and can be said to be very all-round. Aizawa looked at Shengming with a smile on the big screen, nodded approvingly, and commented. Shengming does have extraordinary talents in personality development. Not only him, but also the professional heroes who have a little insight in the audience can see the advantages and power of this move, Lightning Chan. He's so fast. Do you have your own special move? Olmut sat in the teacher's seat and muttered to himself. But in the next second, the power grid around the Shengming group suddenly moved, or the 100 steel balls moved, and their movement also drove all the currents, and Shengming revolved around the center. And the speed is getting faster and faster, and hundreds of currents are gradually connected. At this scene, the people who sat back on Iida all stopped their movements and were stunned. Bang! This scene shocked the class director Aizawa, who had always been calm, suddenly stood up from his seat, his bandaged arms propped up on the table, his upper body leaned forward slightly, his eyes were even wider, staring at the picture on the big screen. That's Chapter 87. Not to mention him, more than a dozen teachers such as Olmut on the Shangying teacher's seat also subconsciously stood up. Aha! Behind the audience, Andrew, who was leaning on the wall alone to watch the battle, his cold blue eyes instantly shrunk into wheat. And the source of their shock is the power grid that has been rotating clockwise around the Shengming group at high speed. No, it's not. This can't be called a power grid anymore, and it doesn't match the lightning chain. It's like a hemispherical golden current shield that is upside down on the ground. Sure enough. On the other side, Shengming rode on Tai Jie, squinting at a pair of golden eyes to observe these steel balls, which were spinning faster and faster under his control. The 2 times he used this trick, lightning chain, before was too hasty, he neglected to feel the changes in detail. But this time the situation is very different. With the experience of the first 2 times, he had a little more energy when he used this trick again. Yes, this is the so-called practice makes perfect. Just now when he maintained the lightning chain, he had an inexplicable feeling in his heart, as if he could affect these steel balls through electricity and consciousness, and then he tried it with this feeling. Well, the steel ball he used for his improvised experiment really moved. So since one can move, what about the others? Soon, all the steel balls moved to the right, which also lifted the hearts of the 8 million people, because if this trick went wrong, then they would be in big trouble. But the situation was beyond their imagination. The maneuverability of the steel ball was in his mind after he was discovered by Shengming and gradually became proficient. Well, again, the mind flashed, and it was a lot of miscellaneous thoughts. If these steel balls can be controlled by electric current, can I make a steel plate and fly on it? Because in the first obstacle race, he was deeply troubled by the inability to fly, so the first thing that came to mind was naturally flying. And a white-haired old man wearing a helmet and a dignified face appeared in front of him. If I continue to delve deeper into this area, it seems that I can imitate the skills of Magneto's old man. At this time, the image of the old man dissipated, and then a stubborn girl with shoulder-length brown hair appeared. The skills of this Dengeki Princess's Iron Sand series can also be studied. Quote. But that's all for another time. And because of the rules of the game, he can't attack, so he prioritizes defensive tricks. Immediately after Makoto Masaka disappeared and a black-haired boy with a pair of cold and white eyes appeared, Kamina thought of a very suitable trick. Bagwazong, return to the sky. His idea was very clear, that is, to rotate 100 steel balls floating in midair like a spinning top around him, and use the powerful centrifugal force generated to bounce away all attacks. This trick has several advantages over the lightning chan in a stagnant state. First of all, the energy consumption is much less, a lot, because this trick is mainly to use centrifugal force defense, so there is no need to increase the current output, as long as the most basic power is maintained. Secondly, the defense density should be stronger. The previous lightning chain was formed by the crossing of linear currents, so there will always be a lot of gaps, but now it is connected, naturally there is no problem in this regard. Finally, the defense is several times stronger than the normal lightning chain. After all, the lightning chain is essentially an offensive move, although it can also be defended, but it still can't be compared with the full-time defense of Huishan. Well, that's my absolute defense. Shangming confidently said the name of this move to everyone. Thunder Sky. Bang. At this time, the ice wall behind the bombing team suddenly exploded, and as soon as Bao Hao, Kirishima and others ran in through the gap, they saw the source of the golden light. "What's that?" said Boldho, in surprise. But no one paid attention to him, because the attention of Bang Jiaoling and the others was focused on the inverted, golden bowl, in front of them. Absolute defense. When Bang Jiaoling heard this, his eyes were slightly cold and he replied, "You are still as arrogant as ever." At the same time, he jumped on the icicle on the side with another leap, and then activated the frozen personality on the right side with all his might, creating a large number of icicles in an instant, and pressing them like a mountain of seas. If it weren't for the fear of hurting Shangming and the others, he would even want to crush it with the strongest iceberg. Boom! The collision of dozens of icicles and the dazzling golden light of the thunder sky attracted the attention of all 120,000 people in the audience, including the other participating teams outside the ice wall. It's really too big of a movement made by Shangming and Bang Jiao Jelly, but it also makes them see the huge level gap between the two sides. Hey, is it really okay for them to mess around like this? The microphone shouted with her mouth open. At this time, although all the big screens were focused on Shangming and the others, they couldn't see anything clearly because of the large amount of ice and white fog. "Kid Dad." Shangming's mother grabbed her father's arm and asked worriedly, "Son, he's not going to have an accident, is he?" Shangming's father was silent, and his heart was also very anxious, although Shangming said, "Absolute defense," before, but no matter how you look at it, the attack of that bombarded boy is even more exaggerated in performance. "It's going to be fine, trust my son." But he still comforted Kamina's mother like this. Soon, the ice mist on the big screen melted and dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye under the scorching sun, and soon a bright golden light appeared in everyone's eyes again. The melancholy in the eyes of Shangming's parents gradually turned into a thick joy under this golden light. How is that possible? The booming boy standing on the icicle, the indifference on his face was completely broken, and he looked in disbelief, looking at the golden bowl that was still spinning leisurely in the ice group. The attack just now, although it couldn't reach the maximum iceberg, it could be regarded as an all-out attack. But even so, there is no way to take the so-called absolute defense. Well, is it still laughable? Genius. Aizawa Bandao, whose face was almost attached to the glass, was like a terrible mummy, staring at the golden bowl on the screen and muttering to himself. "Through those simple steel balls, I can clean up the most uncontrollable thunder and lightning so obediently. This imagination can be called genius, but the level of micro-manipulation of electromagnetism and electricity contained in it is also quite amazing." As a skill-oriented professional hero, he is a little more sensitive to this aspect than others. Thunder of absolute defense. After today, the name of this move will definitely be remembered by all heroes or enemies. At this time, Shangming's voice came from the big screen. Well, he found a good time to pretend again. "There are 3 minutes left. I'm going to win the first place in this game, who agrees with it and who opposes it? If you are against it, just come up and try it. If I can break this absolute defense, even if I lose." Chapter 88. When Bang Hao heard this, he looked at the Lei Tian in front of him in surprise, and then mocked disdainfully, "I didn't expect you, a golden retriever, to be so able to brag. It's really an accident." Shangming shrugged his shoulders and smiled. "Don't talk nonsense. If you have the ability, do it." Look how I bombarded your shitty defenses. Die." Bang Hao brutally pressed down with his right palm on the periphery of Thunder Sky. Of course, if he is as smart as he is, he naturally won't really touch it with his hands, but at a distance of about 1 meter, and then directly launch his personality to blow it up. Boom! Explosions, flames, fires, and black smoke rushed towards the Thunder Sky with full confidence. After about 6 seconds, the sound disappeared, the smoke and dust dissipated, but the golden light remained the same, and the only thing that changed was Bang Hao's face. How is that possible? Bang Hao looked at Lei Tian, with his mouth open and in shock, but it didn't have any effect at all. "Are you setting off a cannon for everyone?" Shangming continued to smile, but the more he was like this, the more arrogant the young man and others present felt arrogant. Go all out, blow it up with all your might. Well, in fact, Shangming was also curious about the upper limit of this thunder sky, which is why he behaved so abnormally. Thunderbolt bastard. Bang Hao unceremoniously slammed over, and then warned the people around him viciously, give me a backbreak, otherwise it will spread, don't blame me for not reminding. What do you want to do? Kirishima asked, turning his head to look at Bakuho in surprise. Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and take me back a few meters. Bang Hao patted Kirishima's head, and then said to Selitsu on the left, remember to pull me back later. Ah. Salu was stunned for a moment, and nodded again and again after reacting. On the other side, the condescending booming boy standing on the icicle was also entangled in his heart, whether to release the maximum iceberg. He is very confident in his big move, but he is worried about what damage and impact will be caused to the Shangming group after breaking the thunder sky. After all, he doesn't want to be sent off with a red card. Just let this guy try it. Quote. The booming boy glanced at the murderous Bang Hao, and said secretly. At the same time, Bang Hao and the others were also ready, and Bang Hao was half squatting on the back of Che Dao, staring at Shangming in thunder sky, with terrifying eyes. Raiden bastard, watch me blow you out of this eggshell. Bang, boom, boom. After speaking, under the attention of the audience, Bang Hao suddenly stepped on the back of the island and jumped high into the air, and then rushed towards the thunder sky, with the help of the explosive gas wave emitted by his hands behind his back. It's a burden on your arms, but it's. In the air, a swooping bumper was preparing for his maximum explosion while shouting, I don't feel happy to see your golden retrievers smile. Kill your. After speaking, he held one hand empty, opened the other, and at the same time put his hands together, and then at a distance of about 15 centimeters from Lei Tian, he unleashed his personality with all his might. Try my howitzer. Raiden bastard. Boom. The Big Bang, the real Big Bang, it was an attack beyond his limits at this point. The red light of the flames in the sky even made the audience on the opposite side feel uncomfortable, and the black smoke that covered the sky directly covered all the screens in the live broadcast. The turbulent air waves that spread outward not only forced Kirishima, but Liu Sei and the others kept retreating in embarrassment, and even the scorching freeze on the icicles almost fell off guard. But it's okay. He grabbed the edge of the icicle just in time, but the wind that was still blowing away made him flutter like a carp stream. What a terrible explosion. I didn't expect him to have such a strong ability. Don't anything happen. I don't know when. Mr. Cement, who was supposed to be the referee of the third game, quietly came to Mr. Midnight's side, and his face at this time was the same as Midnight, which was very ugly. They didn't expect such a powerful scene in just the second game. Miscalculated. Midnight whispered, clutching the whip tightly. Well, if something happens to the students, then we have been derelict in our duties this time. Cement Division said with a heavy heart. Well, according to the original plan, if there was a big conflict between the students, the two of them would be responsible for stopping it, but it was too late to stop the situation just now. Then it took nearly a minute for the smoke on the field to gradually dissipate, or it was blown out by the high-speed rotating, golden bowl, inside. No, it can't be. Bakuro, who was pulled back with duct tape by Sele in time, rode on the back of Kirishima and looked at the thunder sky, who was still spinning in place. What are you kidding? That's an armor-piercing bullet. At this time, not only Bang Hao's arms were aching faintly, but even his heart was shaking. My maximum limit is invalid for this thunder sky, doesn't it mean? This thunderbolt bastard is above me. At the thought of this explosive man, his face darkened completely. That's a good idea, Shangming glanced at the expressions of everyone outside, and then looked down at the numb faces of Tai Jie, Erlang, and 8,103 people beside him, and thought of some surprise in his heart. I really didn't expect this Thunderbolt version, the sustainable, Huishin, to have such a strong defensive capability. Quote. That's not right. At this time, Shangming noticed something unusual, and he felt a faint crack on the 100 steel balls. The attack just now is not ineffective. If he has another explosion just now, then this thunder sky will break. Now Shangming understands that the weakness of thunder sky at this stage is these steel balls as nodes. After I don't need these steel balls in the future and can freely control the external discharge current, I will try to use pure current to use this trick, thunder sky, to see. Quote. Shangming squinted at the golden electricity on his hands, and put this matter deep into his heart. At that time, this move can be regarded as a real, thunder sky, a real, absolute defense. Whoa, whoa, whoa. At this time, the 120,000 spectators who also reacted also woke up from the shock of the wonderful offensive and defensive battle just now, and then cheered without suppressing the impulse in their hearts. Could it be that having fought with the enemy in advance is so different? Yes, there were no such powerful characters in the first grade in previous years. Chapter 89. Shiji High School, also under the arrangement of the school, watched the live broadcast of the Shangying Sports Festival, with his classmates in his respective classes, and was also shocked by the exaggerated strength shown by Shangming, Bang Hao, and Bang Jiao Freeze. Is this his strength? At the same time, he reproduced the scene of the previous meeting in his mind, and Shangming's sentence, "I want to become the strongest thunder and lightning personality in the world," was like being infinitely looped, constantly echoing in his heart. He's not going crazy. It's really possible for him to do it. At this time, in the screen, the red and white boy who used ice cubes before suddenly stood on the icicle and said with a cold face, "In that case, then you're not welcome on my side." Quote. In the next second, a surging cold air erupted from his body, and then a huge iceberg pushed sideways in front of him with a boom. Stop. At the same time, the cement teacher outside the field no longer dared to be careless, and directly pressed his hands on the ground to activate his personality ability, and soon a series of tall and thick cement walls rose between the iceberg and the thunder sky. In a hurry, he had created nearly 10 walls stacked on top of each other. Is this the strength of Teacher Shangying? Bang! On the big screen, people only saw the scene of the iceberg crushing and destroying the concrete wall like a bamboo, and it was indeed invisible in the case of colliding with the last golden thunder sky. Because under the combination of the cold iceberg and the high temperature thunder, the endless water vapor and white fog in the sky were bred, and these mist even converged into waves of smoke and swept the entire Shangying Sports Stadium. Wow, it's so cool. Spectacular. The hundreds of thousands of spectators on the stage and thousands of professional heroes stood up and watched as if they had turned into a fairyland. The three of them, are they really first-year students? It's just that with such exaggerated power, few third-year students can do it, right? While the audience was waiting silently, the timer on the big screen was conscientiously carrying out its work, and when the number changed from 00.01 to 00.00, 2 English letters appeared on the big screen. Time up. But the master of ceremonies and the microphone teacher who should have announced this result to the audience rarely said anything, because he, like everyone else, watched the situation in the field. What the hell is going on? Has that thunder sky been broken? That's what tens of millions of viewers are thinking at this time, sitting in front of the TV or the computer. Shangming's parents were even more worried and panicked. It was really the iceberg that was just created by the bombardment jelly was so big that even people outside the stadium could faintly see the tip of the mountain coming out. A full 3 minutes passed, and although most of the white fog in the field had dispersed, it was still impossible to see the situation clearly, which also made everyone's hearts anxious. What the hell is going on? Won't Shangying's teacher make a move and make the white mist disappear? That's right, I'm really curious who won. It may be that the many gods who inhabit the heavens also wanted to know the outcome of the battle as soon as possible, but out of nowhere, a comfortable breeze suddenly blew, blowing the white mist in the field into the sky in a spiral shape. Well, it's amazing, but no one cares about it now, because they can already see what's going on in the stadium. On the big screen, the thunder sky that had been emitting dazzling golden light around Shangming, Tieja, 8 million, and Erlang disappeared and was replaced by metal fragments scattered all over the place. Around them, or to the left, right, and back 3 places, are tall icebergs, which continue to exude an icy chill in the heat of summer, against the brilliant sunlight that spreads down from the sky. From the perspective of the gods, who may exist, the place where they are located is like a circular valley existing in the ice, but this valley is a little too round. Good risk. On the other side, Shangming jumped down from Taijie, looked at the surrounding situation, and then looked at the shocked expression of Bang Jiao in the distance, and said secretly with palpitations, "If it weren't for the cement wall of the cement division teacher to cancel out part of the kinetic energy of the iceberg, otherwise it would have been really injured." Well, obviously, the maximum limit of Bang Boy is stronger than the maximum limit of Bang Hao. Whoa. Suddenly, the cheers of the 120,000 spectators converged into a wave of sound like a mountain of seas, surging and drowning out Shangming, booming and scorching, and bursting them, and at this moment they even had the illusion that they were deaf. At the same time, the gift microphone teacher also revived again, grabbed the microphone in front of him, and shouted excitedly. Everybody! Did you see that? Shangming's thunder sky perfectly resisted the scorching iceberg. He's right. That can indeed be called absolute defense. Not to mention among his peers, not even professional heroes can break it head-on. Well, as soon as these words came out, it was equivalent to being a microphone teacher, and as a veteran professional hero, he proved the defense of Lei Tian. However, none of the professional heroes in the audience from all over Japan came forward to have any opinions on this. Because they all know that this is exactly what happened. This also makes the professional heroes who have their own hero offices begin to pay more attention to Shangming Electric. Not only can he apply a favorable buff to the team, but he also has super defensive tricks, so it can be said that he is a hot character no matter what country he is in the hero circle. Invite him. We must invite him to come to us for an internship. When he graduates, he will go all out to hire the firm. Some impulsive professional heroes have already begun to look at Shangming excitedly and shout loudly. Just one. 8 million classmates looked at Shangming with some confusion. How can you feel like you have won without doing anything? Erlang also nodded. She also had this feeling that it was too easy to win. From the beginning to the present, they seem to have been running at high speed except for one use of their personality, and they have not had any battles with people at all, and the next thing is to stand in the thunder sky, in a daze, watching one after another, ultimate, press over. It's like watching a stereoscopic movie. Quote, Tai-J couldn't help but complain, in other words, the indestructibility of my Steel War Horse has not been shown at all. Quote. Shangming looked at these guys helplessly. When the easy point, do you still have opinions? At the same time, he secretly said in his heart, is it really easy? I almost had an accident just now. Then let's take a look at the top 4 teams right away. At this time, the gift microphone teacher began to announce the ranking results of this competition. The first place, naturally, is the undoubted Shangming group. Shangming Electric did what he swore before, perfect. Second place, Banghao group. Abominable. Hearing this, Bakaho, who was sitting on the ground, frantically hammered the ground, giving people the feeling that he was not in second place, but was eliminated, which made the 3 of Kurijima, Siro, and Ishido behind him full of helplessness. Third place, Boom group. Quote. The Boom boy looked at Shangming coldly, without saying a word, and at the same time used the burning personality on the left side to melt the frost on the right half of his body, and in the audience in the distance, Anwa also looked at them with a displeased face. Fourth place, Green Valley. When did they come up? The mental exercise of Class C of the general subject just smiled faintly. When Shangming dominated the group before, he didn't have to stand there stupidly like everyone else to watch the show. Phew, that's great. Quote. Midoriya jumped off Tsunami and began to celebrate with Leary and them, although there was no top 4, but the 5th place was already a good result. So, let's take a lunch break of about an hour from now on. Then there's the final game of the afternoon. See you later. Then, he looked at his partner Aizawa, who had calmed down and sat back in his place, and said, hey, Eraserhead, let's go eat together. Quote. Sleep. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 90. With the order of the gift microphone teacher, the audience began to commotion, and the ordinary audience on the stage lined up out of the stadium in an orderly manner from several guest entrances and exits, talking loudly about the wonderful battle just now. Well, the food stall owners outside should be busy. The contestants in the stadium walked to the inside of Shangying from the special entrance, and they had to go to the cafeteria hall to eat, and it is worth mentioning that Shangying wanted to encourage students to actively participate in the sports festival. Therefore, it was promised that all participants would be exempted from lunch on the day of the sports festival. Hey, I'm so hungry. Tai-J held his stomach and sighed while moving forward with the flow of people. I was busy with the game before and didn't pay attention to it, but now when I relax, I find that the food I ate in the morning has already been digested. Quote. Shangming smiled and patted his old iron on the shoulder. It's really hard for you today. Not only did you run a few kilometers in the first event, but you also ran around the whole field with me on your back just now. After speaking, he pondered for a while, and then made a heroic gesture and said to Tai J, Erlang, and 8,103. In this way, I will invite you to lunch for a while. Don't be polite to me, order whatever you want, and drink as you like. Really? Great. As soon as he heard this, Tai J instantly cheered up and laughed excitedly. This is the first time you've invited me to dinner. Nonsense, I remember treating you to a pork chop rice set before. Kamime pouted and replied, Erlang Shang Shang, circle.operator. Circle.operator. 8,100,000, circle.operator. Circle.operator. Huh. The two girls glanced at each other and thought speechlessly. Subsequently, Shangming and other Class A students, after queuing up to get the lunch they ordered, gathered in an area very tacitly and began to chat. Well, there's so much to talk about today. But at this time, 8,100,000 classmates had just eaten a bite of bread, and then while drinking orange juice, they asked Shangming a very non-mainstream question. Kamime, have you thought of my band elf? As soon as Shangming scooped up the second red tofu cube, he heard this sentence. He was stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted and laughed. You care so much about this? Of course. Quote. The 8,000,000 classmates nodded as a matter of course, then looked at the Erlang beside him, and replied, After all, I am also a member of the Pikachu band. You and Shang Shang have it, how can I not have it? So, are you ready? In the end, the 8,000,000 classmates stared at Shangming with a strange look and warned, If you dare to perfunctory me, I won't teach you electromagnetism in the future. Ha ha ha. Seeing the 8,000,000, who had always been a wealthy lady, and now she had become such a little girl, Shangming couldn't help but laugh, and finally saw that the other party's eyes became more and more dangerous. He immediately put down the silver spoon and gently placed his right palm flat in front of him. Your band elves have already been thought of, and I personally think it's a perfect fit for your temperament. Quote. Whoa. Quote. In the next second, under the curious onlookers of the surrounding Class A classmates, including Bang Hao, who was also eating mapo tofu, some bright golden electricity began to flicker on Shangming's palm. It's just that these currents are very slender, and there is no sense of chaos at all, and soon an animal composed entirely of electric currents, with a gorgeous golden light all over its body, sits lightfully on the palm of Shangming. It's so pretty. Ashido Sana, Leary Ochako, frog blowing plum rain and other girl words, even more intoxicated eyes look at it. Awesome, Shangming, can you do this? At this time, the young man who was in a good mood in Midoriya exclaimed in amazement. If you can create such a detailed diorama with electricity, you can definitely make a diorama of buildings and people, or a detailed map of a flat surface, right? This is a very useful skill when performing heroic missions. Well, Midoriya, a teenager, habitually began to think about it again, and I have to say that he and Shangming are indeed very similar in this aspect, and they both like to use their brains. Shangming, what's her name? But 8,000,000 Bai is not interested in knowing now what use this small skill with extremely high micro-manipulation content displayed by Shangming will be for the heroic mission. All she wanted to know now was what this beautiful and elegant little elf in Shangming's palm was, what was its name, and so on. Erlang also wanted to know at this time, because it was obvious that this elf that Shangming had prepared for 8,000,000 was better looking and more beautiful than his own Jiyu Niu. Well, she's got a little emotion. This is the 9 Tails, an evolution of the 6 Tails, and it is a fire attribute Pokemon. Quote. Not only can you control people's hearts and objects by releasing a strange light through a pair of ruby-like eyes, but the fire ability is also very powerful, and you can learn tricks like jet flames, big word explosions, overheating, etc. Quote. Shangming introduced the golden 9-tailed fox, while looking at the well-proportioned body on his right palm, which looked noble and elegant, and the golden 9-tailed fox, with long and slender hair, and spread out his left palm to quickly create a golden 6-tailed fox, that looked even smaller and cute. Oh, this is the 6 tails. 8,000,000 listened to Shangming's introduction, the light in her eyes became more and more abundant, the more she looked at the 9 tails, the more she liked it, especially when it looked up at herself, the arrogance and elegant temperament it showed hit her heart hard. If I really become a Pokemon, maybe. That's it, right? But at this time, Erlang pursed his lips and asked softly, why is it fire-based? This doesn't quite resemble the personality of 8,000,000, right? Shangming shook a little helplessly, there's no way, there are no elves in Pokemon with similar creation abilities, so I have to choose from temperament. Quote. It's okay, I love it. 8,000,000 laughed very happily, and then asked, when will its perimeter come out? I can't wait to put them in my room. If it is a normal step, there will definitely be a long time before the Ninetales debuts. Quote. Shangming said bluntly, but he saw the disappointed expression on the face of 8,000,000, and then added, but we don't have to go through the normal steps, just let the people in the company make some in advance. Well, 8,000,000 classmates have taught him so many times that if he can't even satisfy some of the peripherals, then he really can't help it. Hey, it turns out that this is a Pokemon specially prepared for 8,000,000. Ishido-sana looked at Kamime with envy on his face. Then do we have it? I remember signing that model release contract before. Seeing them looking at him expectantly, Kamido said funny, you will definitely appear in the future animation, but there are no exclusive elves yet. Quote. 8,000,000 is because of the band's need, but it's. At this time, his eyes suddenly glanced at the classmate who was eating Mapo tofu with his ears pricked up not far away, and laughed. I'm thinking of a Pokemon that looks very similar to Banghao, It should be too. Quote. Banghao. The Green Valley boy was stunned, there are still elves with his personality in Pokemon. What are you talking about? Stinky for a long time. Banghao suddenly swallowed the hot tofu in his mouth, and then grinned viciously, what's wrong with my character? Say it again. Quote. Quote. Kirishima and the others looked at him speechlessly, and at the same time became interested in the Pokemon that Shangming said, which was very similar to Banghao, and at this time, the Ninetales and Sixtails on Yuming's left and right hands dissipated in the disappointed eyes of the 8,000,000 classmates. Immediately after that, two completely different, golden spirits, were formed. They are. Erlang asked curiously, but judging from their vivid demeanor and movements, they were indeed more terrifying. Shangming forced a smile and said softly. Fire Monkey and Fire Storm Beast. Chapter 91. The lunch break is not long, only an hour, just enough for everyone to have a meal and chat for a while, and Shangming took advantage of the time to go to the bathroom during this period to call his parents outside the venue. Well, obviously, Mom and Dad are very excited now, there is no way, Shangming has a big luck today. He can imagine that at this time, the personal homepage of MTV Japan must be very lively, and he can also faintly feel that the number of his fans is rising rapidly. It is also worth mentioning that Minoru Mineta, who already has the title of Lust Incarnation in the class. Suddenly, in the name of Substitute Instructor Notice, he pointed to a group of foreign cheerleading girls passing by, and said something to the 8,000,000 girls seriously, and after a while, all the girls would dress like that and participate in a cheerleading competition. To be honest, as soon as these words came out, Shangming knew that he was talking nonsense. Because with the character of Aizawa's class teacher, if there is a school notice, it will definitely be notified in advance, and even if it is a short notice, it will be 100% in person, instead of entrusting this teacher responsibility to the students below. But Kamido didn't stop it, and he didn't say anything. Not. It's really a novelty for the girls in the class to wear cheerleading uniforms or something, why stop it? Pretty good. Soon, Shangming and other contestants gathered in the stadium again, and the audience seats in all directions were once again full of 120,000 people. Alright, the lunch break is over, and it's finally time to announce the last project. The microphone teacher may have been the reason for the fullness of his meals, and his voice and mood seemed more high-spirited and elevated than in the morning. But before that, I have good news for all the students who were eliminated in the qualifiers. After all, this is a sports festival, so the school has long been prepared for entertainment that everyone can participate in. And I also invited a professional women's cheerleading team from the United States to stir up the atmosphere of the scene. But as soon as he finished saying this, the mummified man, Aizawa class guide and the gift microphone teacher immediately discovered the abnormality of the girls in Class A. What are they doing? What's going on, Class A? The microphone was transmitted through the microphone, and the camera immediately showed the 8,000,000 girls wearing young and lovely cheerleading uniforms and having no love. Well, I have to say that at this moment, they are more attractive to the audience than the professional cheerleaders of Nami country. Yes, it's pretty good. Quote. Shangming also admired their demeanor with interest, while the other boys in Class A were a little embarrassed to look at them. Good. Minoru Mineta, the mastermind, looked at them with intoxication and a smug smile on his face. "Ah, I'm such a genius." "Minda-san, you've lied to us, aren't you?" 8,000,000 said angrily with a face of shame, and Erlang threw the props in his hand to the ground with red cheeks, but she didn't know that her outfit made the wind and clouds in Shiji High School look straight. "When you go back, be sure to find the recording video and take a screenshot of it." When the desktop. At this time, the gift and microphone no longer paid attention to them. Because of the time relationship, they spoke again, and at the same time, the 4 large screens also directly switched the picture, which was a pyramid-shaped battle map. After the entertainment project, it will be carried out by the 5 teams that have advanced to the final event, a total of 20 players, one-on-one actual combat elimination round. At the same time, because of the uneven number of people, 2 winners will be drawn in the second round, and then there will be a knockout match, and the winner can enter the third round. As soon as these words came out, Leary asked a little strangely, "Isn't that unfair to those 2 people?" At this time, the teacher on the stage heard it at midnight and explained it to the headset. "That's right, this is really unfair to the 2 players who were drawn, but we Shangying just want to tell everyone through this incident that there will always be accidents like this and that in life. Facing the injustice caused by accidents is also the psychological quality that a professional hero should have." Well, the words are very beautiful, but in fact, the Shangying side can't think of any fairer way besides this method. In short, it is a sentence, all the right of interpretation belongs to Shangying. Okay, let's draw lots to decide on the battle group. Quote, "After everyone is divided into groups and participates in the entertainment project, the final competition will officially begin. The 20 students who advance to the finals can decide whether to participate in the entertainment program or not. After all, some people will take this opportunity to take a break or make some preparations." Quote, "Then let's start with the top-ranked Kaminaka group." The midnight teacher on the stage, with a red-framed glasses, continued to preside over with a smile, but at this time, the 2 of them, Tail White Ape and Kuchida Koji, who were in Class A, suddenly stretched out their hands in unison to signal that they had something to say. Sorry to interrupt, and what's interesting is that the words spoken by the 2 are exactly the same. Well, there's no way, that's the characteristic of the Japanese language. Basically, in a situation, if you can use it as an opening statement, it's really fixed. I abstain. Quote, Ohaku and Kuchida glanced at each other, and then Ohaku raised his hand to speak first. Ah. As soon as he said this, everyone around him was shocked, and the midnight teacher was even more stunned with his mouth open. What is the situation? Why, you finally made it to the finals. The Green Valley boy exclaimed. Well, you know what a rare opportunity this is, right? Yi Yintu, who has always had a good relationship with Tail Bai, also anxiously waved 2 gloves floating in the air. Because until the end of the race, my memories of horseback riding were almost blank, probably because of the guy's personality. Quote, Tail White glanced at the Shinsao envoy in the distance a little uncomfortably, but unfortunately Shinsao just looked straight ahead, ignoring him at all. I knew it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to perform, and I knew what a foolish thing it would be to pass it up. He clenched his fists tightly and said firmly, but it's a stage where everyone is doing their best and constantly competing, like this. I can't do this inexplicably to occupy a precious spot. After listening to Obai's words and realizations, Shengming looked at him differently all of a sudden. Oh, this guy is excellent. Just when Yi Yintu, Ishido and other girls were comforting, Tailbai covered his face all of a sudden, and said in a trembling voice, no. It's about my personal dignity. I hate that. At this time, Koji Kuchida walked in front of Mr. Midnight and scratched his head a little embarrassed and said. As for me, I knew that it was difficult for me to fight one-on-one in this environment, so I didn't want to waste this opportunity. Quote, what is your personality? Midnight asked confusedly. It's called Creature Voices, and it can command animals through language, but... Kuchida scanned the entire arena a little speechlessly. There are no animals here, even pigeons and other birds are frightened by the noisy environment and sounds. Quote, okay, what about you? Quote, when I heard this at midnight, I felt pity for this honest boy, and then looked at the B-class Zhuang Tianergy who came over. What's the situation? There are so many abstentions in this year's sports festival finals. My reasons are the same as those from Class A. Quote, the short and fat Zhuang Tian struck 2 times, lowered his head and looked at his right fist, and muttered to himself, let's not talk about the strength, let the people who have not done anything advance to the finals. Isn't this completely contrary to the purpose of this sports festival? At this moment, these three people completely became the focus of the audience. In fact, in a sense, they are enough to attract attention by doing this. After all, such a heroic student will definitely attract the appreciation of many professional heroes who value this. Well, this is something that Kamito habitually sees from a more realistic perspective in the mind of an adult. At the same time, the attention of the whole audience was on the beautiful and charming teacher at midnight, and they wanted to see how she would decide as the referee. Your childish speech. I love it. As he spoke, he shook the whip in his hand and passed the three's application to abandon the competition completely according to his personal preference, and then knotted his lips and muttered to himself. But in this way, there are 3 places vacated, or just put the 3 people with the highest scores in the first 2 events. Quote. As soon as her words fell, the names of 3 people and the total score ranking appeared on the big screen with great intelligence. It's Class B, the bones are soft, the round field is hard, and the fist vine is a good 3. Midnight Teacher looked at the virtual screen behind him, no longer wasting time, and directly announced the final spots for the final and the 2 sides in the first round and the first match. In this way, there are 20 contestants again, according to the grouping of the draw. Please look at the big screen. The first scene, Leary Ochako vs Heart People. Then let's enjoy the entertainment to the fullest. That being said, it's hard to do that for those who advance to the knockout rounds. Some people are desperately thinking about the strategy of attacking their opponents, some people are trying to maintain a normal heart, some people are making various preparations for battle, some people are adjusting their mentality and concentrating, and some people are trying to relieve the tension in their hearts. Everyone has their own thoughts, and in a blink of an eye, it is time for the finals to begin. The rules are very simple. Completely adopt the actual combat rules that make the opponent withdraw from the court, or incapacitate, or force the opponent to take the initiative to say, I admit defeat, to win. There's no need to be afraid of getting hurt because our recovery girls are always on the sidelines. However, moves that endanger the opponent's life will be seriously fouled and disqualified from the game on the spot. In the gift, the microphone teacher's words made Shangming subconsciously raise his eyebrows, and said secretly, in this case, you have to think about whether you want to use that trick or not. Quote. Because that move can definitely be regarded as the mystery of killing in the middle. It's a little difficult. Then the nervous Leary Mikako and the expressionless heart operator made the 2 of them both board the cement arena made by the cement teacher, and then looked at each other silently. Dad, I will definitely perform well, and then become a professional hero, and make a lot of money to help you. In this mood, Leary's nervousness has also been significantly relieved. After all, when a person has a strong goal, her courage will be significantly increased. Start. Chapter 92. It's A. Sitting on the seat specially assigned to Class A, Shangming looked at the indifferent face below his eyes, and then turned his head to ask the classmate Obai who was sitting in the back. Did you talk to Leary about each other's personalities? Well, it's already been said. As soon as Obai replied, he realized something strange, and then asked suspiciously, do you also know that Shinsao's personality? No, after all, I've seen it twice before. Quote. Shangming nodded, then looked at the arena below again, and said with a smile, in this case, Leary should win a relatively light. Huh. Before he finished speaking, the smile on his face froze in an instant along with the figure of Leary Mikako below. How is it possible? I know the personality ability of the other party, how can I still be controlled? Half a minute ago. Did I lose? The audience gradually began to quiet down, and at this time, the heart gymnastics opposite Leary suddenly spoke. Huh. Leary furrowed her cute little eyebrows and was stunned for some reason. This, Shangyang Sports Festival, is essentially a contest to test whether the heart is strong. Quote. Shin Sao slowly launched his mouth escape. Without hurrying, Leary may not know now. In fact, his battle has already begun from the moment he speaks. Wrong. Maybe she knew. If you have a strong desire for the future, you can't care about face and means. Quote. After speaking, Shinsao's expression revealed a deep disdain. What dignity did that monkey mention just now? Don't you think that he who took the initiative to give up the opportunity is just an out-and-out idiot? These words were deliberately done by Shinsao in order to provoke Leary, and they were also what they thought in their hearts. Really? Leary's face began to grow angry. Her personality has always been kind, gentle, and cheerful, but in the face of this naked insult to her classmates, she still can't help but become angry. Don't let you look down on Ojiro-san. At this moment, she forgot many things impulsively, including everything that Ohaku had said to her before, and went straight to Shinsao. But in the next second, Leary's body stopped strangely, and then stood in place with no aura in his eyes, and at the same time, the corners of the mouth on the other side were obviously upturned. I won. Tail White in the audience scratched his yellow hair frantically, and complained anxiously, I obviously specially advised her. Of the Rishi, Erlang, who has always had a good relationship with Leary, is also worried. Inexplicable. Quote. Shangming had no longer smiled on his face at this time, and he said this expressionlessly. Was slapped in the face instantly, but it hurt. In his opinion, since Leary already knew his personality ability, he should remain silent no matter what Shinsao said. To be honest, even if Leary loses this game, he doesn't feel any wrong. Hey, what's going on? The microphone teacher looked through the wide glass, looked at the situation below in amazement, and then said loudly with some dissatisfaction. What the hell is going on? This is an important opening match, give me a little more fun. But at this time, Leary Ochako turned around and walked slowly backwards. This strange situation made everyone present scratch their heads. Leary was not only frozen from the beginning, but also showed a stupid expression and walked in the direction he came. Isn't this the personality of the heart? The words of the microphone teacher made many ordinary viewers and professional heroes suddenly realize, yes, this is the only possibility. But if that's the case, that kind of personality that can control people out of thin air is really strong. A professional hero with an outfit exactly like Dynamic Superman subconsciously licked his dry lips and muttered to himself. That purple-haired boy obviously looks inconspicuous, but I didn't expect him to be a ruthless character. The Sky Knight, who was wearing a red and green combat uniform next to Dynamic Superman, also agreed very much when he heard his partner's words. That's why I said that the entrance exam was very unreasonable. Quote. Aizawa class guide looked at Leary, who continued to walk slowly to the sidelines, and moved his gaze back to a document in his hand with a solemn expression. Shinsao has this kind of personality, but he was brushed off during the entrance exam, just because his abilities are not effective against those robots. However, judging from the fact that he applied for the general course at the same time, he must have expected his defeat a long time ago. Quote. Thinking of this, Aizawa class guide recalled that when he applied for Shangyang University, he also applied for the general subject at the same time, so he understood very well and even appreciated this choice of mental exercise. After all, the kind of entrance test that has no fairness at all will be more beneficial to candidates who have a personality, in terms of physical aggression. The students of Class A, well, except for Shangming, Bang Hao, Bang Jiao Frozen, and Chong Dark, all stood up anxiously and shouted Leary's name, trying to wake her up, but it didn't have any effect. Lost. Quote. Kamina calmly watched Riri Mikako step out of the white line of the arena, and at this moment he really wanted to complain about stupidity in his heart. But he didn't, and he had some words in his heart, so it was better to put them in his heart. At this time, Leary suddenly regained consciousness again, but before she could realize her situation, the words of the gift microphone teacher resounded throughout the gymnasium through the sound in all directions. Final project. The first person to advance to the second round is Class C of General Course. People. The microphone teacher opened his voice and presided over loudly. It's definitely down. As an ordinary subject, you can easily defeat the students of the hero department, you guy is really strong. Whoop. The atmosphere of the audience was once again stirred up by the gifts. Microphone, but as a loser, Leary Mikako, but already aware of what's happening. Advice before Oshiro. Bang. Quote. How? I obviously didn't do anything. Leary knelt on the ground in despair, and her eyes couldn't stop flowing a large string of tears. Raihai-chan. Seeing this scene, the young man of Midoriya clenched his fists tightly. He really felt uncomfortable for Leary at this time, and at the same time, what Leary had said to them before came to mind again. Leary-san, what's wrong? Why did Leary get admitted to the hero department, and why did you aspire to become a hero? That one. Hey, it's for the money. Quote. For the money. From the point of view of the ultimate goal. Haha, I'm a little sorry, the motive is so impure. But, I definitely want to be a hero, work hard to make money, and let my parents enjoy the good fortune. The kind-hearted Green Valley boy also flashed with tears in the corners of his eyes, and muttered to himself at the same time. Leary-san, obviously, I want to work so hard and perform so well at this sports festival. Hearing his words, the people around him were silent for a while. Shengming also did not react. He didn't have anything to say. This world is not a fairy tale world where you can succeed just by thinking about hard work. No one else can be blamed for this result, but she can only blame herself for being too impulsive. Quote. At this time, Leary with tears on his face and Shinsao who accepted the cheers of the audience had already returned to their respective lounges from the corridors on both sides, and Midoriya, Ashido and others had also left the audience, and they were going to hurry to comfort Leary. Shangming originally wanted to go and see it, but as a gift, the microphone teacher announced that the second battle was between the two recommended students, Bang Jiaoling and Ji Ba Ruzhao, and he still obeyed his heart and stayed. Because he was really curious about whether these recommended students, who were initially identified as stronger than him by the high level of Xiangying, really each had the strength to blast the scorch, or the amount of knowledge of 8 million hundred. Is it, to make bones? Chapter 93. Tread, step, step, step. In the corridor connecting the players' lounge and the sports field inside the Xiangying Sports Hall, Bang Jiaoleng maintained an indifferent expression and walked out step by step. He didn't watch the game of Leary and Shinsao in the audience with everyone just now, but locked himself in the lounge alone, silently calming down the mood that had been stirring since the battle with Shangming. Now he's calm, but just after he turned a corner, his face instantly turned cold, and then he unceremoniously scolded the strong man who was leaning against the wall. Don't get in the way here. It's Andvis, his biological father, and the current top powerhouse who ranks second on the list of Japanese heroes. It's ugly, scorched. Quote. Andrew's eyes were just as cold, exactly like Bang Scorch, It seems to be the other way around. In the last game, as long as you cast the iceberg, and then use the power of your left body, then you don't need to work so hard to break the thunder sky of Shangming Electric. Quote. After all, there is a world of difference between you and them in terms of qualifications. Step, step, step. Bombardment ignored him, but continued to walk forward silently with a cold face, and Andwa looked at the stupid son who was about to pass in front of him, and scolded coldly. You should stop in moderation, stop making this childish rebellion, you have an obligation to surpass Armit. Then he looked at the back of Bang Jiao Freeze's silence and continued. Do you understand, you are different from your brothers and sisters, you are my tallest, most perfect masterpiece. Hearing this, Bang Jiaoleng could no longer hold back the anger in his heart, and while continuing to walk towards the brilliant field, he whispered back with a trembling voice. That's all you have to say, then you'll show me clearly. I will rely on my mother's strength alone to achieve the ultimate victory. I will never use your strength in battle, absolutely. When Andwa heard this, he was very disappreciative in his heart, and he was even more ruthless. Even if you can do it this time, you will soon encounter the limit, especially the kid named Shangming Electric. It is difficult to rely on your frozen personality alone. The scorched cold suddenly stopped at the edge of the corridor, and the bright sunlight from the sky was less than a centimeter from the tip of his nose. Then you just watch with your eyes wide open on the stage, and watch me use only my mother's strength. Defeat Shangming Electric. After speaking, directly under Andwa's blue gaze, he resolutely stepped out of the dark road. Stupid son. Quote. Andrew retracted his gaze and said to himself lightly, that Thunderbolt boy is obviously above you in terms of the level of controlling personality. Shangming Electric. Also a genius. Quote. In the next second, his last words were swept away by cheers from the sidelines. Boom. Flamethrowers, placed in the four corners of the concrete arena, once again burst into flames under the control of the staff. I've kept you waiting. Gift. The microphone teacher started to work hard to warm up again, but the last battle was too boring. The next to fight are these two classmates. On the four big screens in the next second, photos of the two people instantly appeared, and seeing that it was the first two outstanding Bang Jiao jelly, the audience became hot again. Excellent. Both of them are excellent. These two people are both students who have successfully entered the hero department of our Xiangying University as guaranteed recommended students this year. It can be said that this one is definitely a strong showdown. But even in such a lively atmosphere, the players standing on both sides of the cement arena did not have any expression at all. Well, one with a black face is extremely indifferent, and the other is terrifying looking and silent. However, the audience did not have any opinion on this at all. On the contrary, many people felt that this is the style of an elite. At the same time, in the audience of Class A, Shengming glanced at the explosion who was silently watching the game. Aren't you going to comfort Leary? Huh. Bang Hao glanced at Shengming, then turned his head and continued to stare at the bank's scorching freeze off the field, and replied viciously. I don't have the patience to watch a girl cry, and isn't it already gone for a long time? Quote. When Shengming heard this, he smiled and said, you really trust Green Valley? Quote. Huh. What stupid things are you talking about? Who would trust that miscellaneous fish? Bang Hao glared at Shengming viciously and warned, if you dare to talk nonsense again, be careful that I kill you. Huh. Quote. Kamime shrugged his shoulders. He already knew a little bit about this guy's personality, so he wasn't as disgusted as he was at first. It's just a little kid who doesn't have much manners, and he can't talk about bullying or anything. Then the final project, the second game officially begins. Start. At this time, the microphone teacher announced loudly, and below, the first to do it was not the bombardment with his head down and his black face, but the bone-pulling and soft building of Class B. He didn't say anything, just stepped forward, and the color of the concrete floor in front of his feet changed significantly, and quickly spread towards the scorched area, which was his personality, softening. Being able to make everything you touch extremely soft, well, except for the existence of life. The booming boy with his head down, saw a dark-colored area on the ground approaching, and his originally indifferent eyes instantly became cold and dangerous. Sorry. He didn't mean to move at all, and directly activated the personality of his right body with all his strength, and a large number of cold ice blocks began to emerge from the ground, rushing forward one after another. It's useless, even if it's ice, I can soften it for you. Ji Ba Ruzhao thought silently. In fact, he was right, the icicles that had been frozen by the scorching freeze did change significantly after touching the softened area, and it felt like they had turned into sticky ice water. But the point is that there are too many ice cubes produced in this moment, as if endless, with a very unreasonable attitude, overwhelmingly rushing towards the bone-pulling and Rougeouan. As soon as the 10 icicles in front collapsed softly, 20 or 30 were stacked on top of each other, and a huge iceberg with a height of 50 or 60 meters was formed in an instant, and it suddenly appeared in the field again. The appearance of this iceberg, even because of its terrifying weight, made this super stadium with a capacity of 120,000 spectators slow as if an earthquake was coming, which also made many professional heroes stand up and look at the iceberg vigilantly. But it is obvious that even the angry boy has not lost too much calm. Although the size of the iceberg is large, it has not touched any audience at all. Well, the icy chill that emanates doesn't count. Quote. Although I had seen it once before, everyone, including Aizawa's class guide and the gift microphone teacher, yes, everyone, was still stunned by this exaggerated scene. What kind of madness is he smoking? And he will make a big move when he comes up. Shengming, who sat firmly in his seat, looked at the iceberg less than 2 meters away from him speechlessly. But, what am I going to do with this in a while? After all, the rules of the competition are that you are not allowed to bring any equipment other than the equipment that you can bring yourself, well, including his steel balls and coins. But without these two things, the super electromagnetic cannon, lightning chain, and thunder sky can't be used. Off the field, the right side of his body, which was also covered in frost due to the excessive release of cold air, breathlessly exhaled the cold breath and whispered to the bone-pulling softness that was completely frozen and completely frightened. Sorry, R rating. It's so much worse. Quote. Chapter 94. Guba-kun, can you still move? Outside the field, the midnight teacher, who was also frozen with half of his body, trembled involuntarily and asked a nonsense question. Can't. Ji Ba Ruzhao felt the coldness of his whole body, tried to shake his frozen face, and whispered. Bone pulling, incapacitation, scorching, advance to the second round. Midnight teacher flicked his whip and announced loudly into the headset. Quote. However, no one in the audience made a sound. They looked at the iceberg rising from the ground in a daze, and didn't know what to say for a while. The boy is his father. Son, he's been attacked like this just now. Mother Shengming opened her mouth in shock and muttered to herself. Ah yes. Shengming's father nodded blankly, then pursed his lips, barely showed a smile, and said, Shengming he. It's really strong. Quote. At this time, the explosion in the field was scorched, and he slowly walked in front of Gu Baruzao, and gently placed his right hand on his frozen body. "Forgive me, it's too heavy, I'm not in a good mood." Quote. After speaking, he directly activated the burning personality of the right side of his body, melted the ice on his body for the bone pulling and Ruzao, and then pressed his palm on the iceberg on the side and activated his ability with all his might. After all, if you pretend to be forced by yourself, you must end up by yourself. Soon, the originally huge iceberg began to slowly melt, and then turned into a large amount of ice water and spread throughout the stadium. Boom! The boom boy looked at the flowing water all over the ground, subconsciously glanced at where Andwa was, and then released a raging flame from his right side, releasing it on a large scale around him, but his figure, no matter how you look at it, gives people a sad feeling. Whoop! As the scorching flames fought around, soon all the ice water vaporized and disappeared, and the ground became dry again, so to speak, quite clean. This guy has the skills to be a super cleaner. Quote. Hey. Shangming stood up from his seat with a smile, and then walked out of the audience alone under the gaze of Baku. Because next time, it's his turn. At this time, Midoriya and the others were ushered in on the opposite side, and Leary was also among them, but from the expression, he had regained his calm. Kaminari-san. Midoriya looked suspiciously at Shangming Electric, who walked in front of him and looked at him silently, and the others also looked at each other. Hee, nothing. Quote. Let's go, we'll be next. Quote. Shangming smiled and patted him on the shoulder, then nodded with Tai J, Erlang, and the 8,000,003, and went directly past them and continued to walk down, but he left a word at the end. I'm looking forward to it, Midori-kun. Quote. Kirishima didn't exhale until Kamime disappeared from sight, and then asked worriedly. Midoriya, you have to cheer up in a moment, and you will be able to tell him. It's not weaker than a boom. I know. Midoriya nodded with a heavy face, then raised his hand in front of his eyes and held it hard, and said firmly, but I also have a reason why I can't lose, no matter how strong he is, I will go all out to defeat him. He remembered what Olmut had said to him. Let everyone see him come out of nowhere. Well, come on, Midori-kun. Leary-chan hides the sadness in her heart and cheerfully cheers for Midoriya loudly. Quote. And Tai J, Erlang, and 8,103 people, just subconsciously glanced at each other, and then remained silent tacitly, but their inner thoughts were the same. Want to win? I guess I can do it, the others. Far from it. Later, with the encouragement of many friends, Midoriya also walked out of the audience and went to the stadium alone, while the others sat separately and quietly waited for the battle to begin. Soon, everything was ready, but because of the previous two situations, Shangying sent another teacher to be determined outside the field this time. It is Brad King, the leader of the Hero Section B class, a veteran hero with the title of King of Vlad. No way, no matter how you look at it, Shangming Electric's strength is no less than that of Bang Jiao. And not only that, but even Olmut, who was sitting in the teacher's seat, was already ready for it. As long as Shangming used a super limit trick and posed a mortal danger to the Green Valley boys, then he would directly transform and stop them. Of course, the reverse is also true. After all, he knows very well how terrifying One for All's power is. Midoriya boy is not very good at controlling it now, and the possibility of accidents is also very high. Boom! The four flamethrowers on the sidelines spewed scorching flames again, and the words of the gift microphone teacher were once again heard throughout the audience, and at the same time, Shangming and Midoriya slowly walked out of the corridor. Hero Division, everyone already knows very well its strong strength of Shangming Electric, fighting. Is also a Hero Division A class, and in the first project of blockbuster Midoriya Izuku. Then the final battle, the first round, the third battle officially begins. Start. Whoop. Shangming Electric's super popularity was once again revealed at this moment. Not only the audience at the scene was excited, but even countless netizens and fans on the internet began to get excited. Come on. Like the previous Bang, kill him in seconds. Electric. Get your Pikachu out, 100,000 volts. Stupid, in reality he can use 100,000 volts by himself. Hey, yes, then go on the Electric, 100,000 volts. It's strange. It seems that there are a lot of inexplicable words passing by on the barrage. Hawkers, forget it. Keep watching the game. Watch the game. Midori-kun, what kind of ability are you? Isn't your personality and explosive strange power? Shangming looked at Midoriya suspiciously, Just now the Green Valley boy didn't know what he had done, and a swishing green current came out of his body. Is it completely copying his high-speed moving state? Actually, to be honest, he noticed this during the obstacle race, but at that time he was a little nervous, so he didn't think too much about it. Well, I can't explain what that's all about. The young man was stunned for a moment, then looked down at the current on his body, and replied embarrassedly. Unlike him in the original book, his use of One for All was not something he had studied step by step, but a skill that he had unintentionally mastered. Because Midoriya really didn't know what was going on, he was still waiting for the end of this sports festival to go and ask Armit for advice. Well, yes. Quote, high-speed moving, open. Kamina didn't get a satisfactory answer, shrugged his shoulders indifferently, and then his eyes suddenly became serious, and at the same time, a crackling golden current came out of his body. Then let me see, what is the difference between your forgiveness version of high-speed movement and mine? Now everyone saw this interesting situation, obviously two different players, but they did enter an extremely godlike state. Crackle. Just when many people were speculating whether Midoriya also had the ability of the thunder and lightning system, Kamime suddenly moved, and he took the lead in launching a charge against Midoriya. It also made Midoriya's expression change in an instant. What kind of expression do you have? Didn't you understand the gap between us? Do what you said before. Do your best to defeat me. As soon as the three sentences fell, Shangming had already appeared in front of Midori Valley's right, and then a electric light fist slammed up, and the dazzling golden light instantly reflected Midori Valley's face. Izuku Midoriya. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 95. ZZZ. Phew. In the face of Shangming's high-speed, electric light fist, Midoriya did not have the idea of directly blocking it, but wiped his right foot on the ground and quickly slid back 2 meters. Bang. Then, when Shangming continued to press over step by step, Midoriya slammed a straight punch at the air in front of him, and the air in front of the fist was strongly distorted in the next second, and quickly converged together, forming a more obvious fist wind. Crackling. In the face of the attack of the fist wind, Shangming's face did not change at all, and he moved to the right side at will, easily dodging the fist wind, but a few strands of blonde hair in his ears were blown up. He had seen the power of Midoriya's personality so many times before, how could he really rush forward unprepared? But now Midoriya's punch made Shangming feel strange. It's too weak. Compared with the previous exaggerated power, the power of this fist style is too perfunctory. Crackling. Kamina hurried after him again, but this Midoriya seemed to have made up his mind to avoid the battle, and he had no intention of engaging him in close quarters. ZZZ. Bang. ZZZ. Bang. For a full 3 minutes, Midoriya simply relied on the speed that was not inferior to the high-speed movement, and the Dao fist style that was swung out with both fists, and the kites were all over the field. Unlike me, those on Shangming-san's body are real currents, and close contact with them is definitely a stupid choice. I just need to maintain the current situation, exchange his power with my physical strength, and sooner or later I can make Shangming-san run out of power. Midoriya stared at Kamira, who was constantly chasing him, and continued to quickly dodge to keep a relatively safe distance from him, while his brain was running rapidly. Or, find a chance to play 100%, smash, directly in the air and blast Shangming-san out of the field. At the same time, the 120,000 viewers on the stage and countless viewers in front of the TV saw a very gorgeous and intense scene. 2 figures, one gold and one green, chase each other at a very fast speed on a rectangular cement court about the size of 4 basketball courts, and from time to time there will be a thunderous sound of bombardment and the sizzle of electricity. This made everyone's hearts slowly lift, but the whole environment gradually quieted down, and even the gift microphone teacher temporarily closed his mouth because everyone was watching the battle seriously. On the other hand, Kamido had already roughly understood Midoriya's incomparably godlike state, what specific abilities he had, and guessed the principle slightly. Unlike activating cells with an electric current by yourself, the speed of this Green Valley is completely dependent on pure physical strength. Or that he used strength to get speed. His personality ability has not changed, and it is still that explosive strange power, but this guy has very cleverly adjusted the power of strange power, and transferred it from his hands to his whole body. Because of the great strength, so the fast run. Because of the great strength, so the punch style. Kamido stopped suddenly, silently looking at Midoriya, who was also restrained, and compared the advantages and disadvantages of the two states in his heart. In terms of speed, it's about the same as high-speed movement, and it's impossible to say who is faster than whom, but the power of his punches and kicks is definitely much greater than mine, but every attack on my side will have the effect of electric shock attached. Quote. Is there a difference between pure body art and ninjutsu? At this time, seeing that both sides of the battle stopped, the voice of the gift microphone teacher sounded again. What's wrong? Why don't you fight? But Shangming ignored his urging and showed a handsome smile at the Midoriya boy, which was also accurately captured by the photographers. Is that all you have? What? Midoriya looked at it with a look of confusion on his expression. Just a word of war, you'd better be prepared for that. Strange power, move, because I'm not going to play with you anymore. Quote. I'm serious, but it's scary. The smile on Kamina's face disappeared, his eyes became sharp, the electricity around his body began to gradually increase, and his hair began to stand on end under an inexplicable force. High voltage electric shock, on. Well, the name changed, because he felt that the image of his move was more similar to high voltage electric shock than electric flash. Boom. With the sound of a jet of energy, Shangming was once again completely enveloped by the surging golden flames, and from time to time there would be dangerous electric light dancing around him. Bang! In an instant, Shangming's whole person disappeared in place, leaving only a circle of charred ground, and at the same time, a golden afterimage that could not see the human body at all flew towards the Green Valley boy like a laser. It's so fast that photographers don't have time to catch up. It's so strong. As the person who faced this afterimage, the young man of Green Valley also instantly understood his situation at this time. Under the absolute crushing of this speed, he was already unavoidable. Smash! Therefore, he did not hesitate, and at the cost of another serious injury to his right arm, he threw his fist with all his strength at the air in front of him again, but this time the power was not on the same level as before. It's now. Shangming, who was in the state of high voltage electric shock, saw the bright red light that bloomed on Midorigu's body again, and his heart also cheered up with 12 points. In the audience, Armit stood up suddenly, and then looked at the two of them extremely nervously, because he knew that Midorigu's punch could seriously injure or even kill Shangming if it was not good. Quote. Quote. The eyes of the class director Aizawa, who was overlooking from a high place, also narrowed. He was struggling, wondering whether to directly erase Midoriya's personality, but until Shangming appeared in front of Midoriya, he didn't make any moves. At the same time, Bang Hao, Bang Jiao and others, who were sitting in the audience of Class A, were also waiting for the results with serious faces. Boom. Finally, the power of Midoritani's punch exploded, but he was also worried that something would happen, so he directly detonated the power of One for All in the air before he came into contact with Kamime. Hoo. The fierce wind and the incomparably turbulent waves swept towards the front of the Green Valley, which also made the faces of the tens of thousands of spectators sitting on the opposite side change drastically. If this really pressed on the body, the ghost knows what would happen. But in some women and when the man was about to open his mouth to scream, concrete walls rose from the ground and firmly blocked the front of the air wave, so that the audience behind him no longer panicked. Great, just in time. The cement teacher, who was half squatting on the ground and his palms firmly on the ground, showed a happy smile on his face when he saw this scene. Boom, click, click, bang, bang, bang. But when the chi wave and the first cement wall met, the smile of the cement teacher froze instantly, and it was obvious that he was happy too early. The first 3 cement walls only lasted for 2 or 3 seconds before turning into a pile of rubble fragments, and then continued to break through the 4 cement walls before being reluctantly picked up by the last wall. It's really very reluctant. This cement wall that has become a hero is covered with terrifying cracks on its body at this time, and the audience who is protected by it is also panting for breath again and again. At that moment just now, they really felt like they were suffocating. Phew. Many heroes in other positions saw that there was no accident, and the hearts they brought up fell back into their stomachs again, but in the next second, everyone thought of someone, Shangming Electric. He's the closest person to Midori Valley, what's going on with him? Then everyone's eyes moved to the field again, but the situation on the field made everyone in the audience, including Olmut and others, stunned. How could it be? At the same time, the sound of Shangming was also transmitted through 4 large screens. You lose, Midoriya. Chapter 96. You lose, Midoriya. On the ultra-clear big screen, Shangming, who has returned to normal, stands tall behind the Green Valley boy, and his right hand gently holds the back of his neck. He can electric shock the other party at any time. How is that possible? The young man in Midoriya felt the warmth on his neck, and he stiffened and didn't dare to move, but he didn't understand. I don't understand when Kamime got behind him. Not to mention himself, even the host gift. Microphone teacher was extremely curious, so he directly used his authority to let the staff below replay the previous picture on the big screen. And one of the big screens is just above the Green Valley boy. On the big screen, he saw that at the moment when his 100% smash blasted out, Shangming Electric, who was shrouded in golden flames, made a leaning and sliding motion, turning into a golden shadow from his armpit and sliding over. If another time traveler who is familiar with the King of Fighters is present, he will immediately recognize that this is the sliding step of Yagami. Wow! As soon as this replay was played, everyone in the audience screamed, and most of the audience couldn't believe what they were seeing. In such an urgent situation, and at such a super high speed, how did he make such a smooth move? And his time is too good. Timing right. Not true. Quote. The class leader Aizawa, who was wrapped in bandages, suddenly vetoed the microphone in front of him when he heard the words of the microphone teacher next to him, and his voice also reached everyone's ears. Shangming is not how well he grasps the time, but he knows in advance that Midoriya will use such a powerful punch. How is this possible? That's right, judging from the movements, it's obviously no different from the previous straight punches. The ordinary audience in the audience couldn't help but question, even some young, first-time professional heroes. But veteran heroes such as Armut, Andva, and Forest Kamui, who was in charge on the sidelines, either lowered their heads or squinted their eyes and began to think. Think back to what Kamime said to Midoriya before. Quote. Aizawa Bandao looked at the still-maintained posture on the field, listened to his words of Kamime and Midoriya, and calmly continued to speak. Kamito said to Midoriya before that he was going to get serious next, and made a gesture of being aggressive and going all out, and at the same time reminded Midoriya to prepare for strange power. Quote. All of this is to influence Midoriya's judgment. Quote. In Midoriya Izuku is because of the strong strength shown by Shangming Electric in the first two projects, so he cares about Shangming's every move, so after Shangming burst out far faster than him, he naturally used his full strength. Quote. In the end, the class guide's eyes focused on the smiling Shangming, and in a tone of appreciation, he made an end. This series of changes are all in Shangming Electric's plan. Quote. Olmut was silent, and he suddenly felt that the Green Valley boy was really not wronged at all when he lost to Shangming. It's not just a gap in strength itself. In the field, after watching the replay and listening to the analysis of Aizawa class guide, Midoriya smiled bitterly and cancelled the state of 5% of the body, but he still asked unwillingly. Is what the class leader said true? Kamime smiled and lowered his right hand slightly, believing that Midoriya's character would not make a sneak attack. Well, the key is your strange power. I've seen it a few times before. Quote. I don't know if you've noticed it yourself, but every time you want to play an exaggerated power, a very conspicuous red light will appear on your arm, and there's still a time to recharge. Quote. And at this point you are clearly putting all your strength and attention on your arms, and the rest of your body is completely indistinguishable from that of an impersonal person. Quote. So in this short period of time, it can be said that you are the strongest time, and you can also be said to be the weakest time. At this moment, his words were quietly listened to by all. It's an obvious precursor to action, it's not slow, but it's not too fast to charge up, and with my speed far exceeding yours, it's not impossible to dodge your move. Quote. That's why I'm going to sprint at you with all my might, because I know very well that the field is so big, and with the exaggerated power of your punch, there's no room to dodge. Quote. So I have only one choice, and that is to flash behind you. Midoriya pursed his lips bitterly after hearing this, then pinched his right arm, which was seriously injured and purple again, with his left hand, and turned his head to say to the midnight teacher on the sidelines. I lost. Then, in the cheers that erupted again, he looked at Armut embarrassedly, his eyes filled with apologies. I'm sorry, Olmut. Husband, you've done your best, Green Valley boy. Olmut also comforted the Midoriya boy with his eyes. Well, the devil knows how they did it. Dead handle, you don't lose unjustly. Quote. Still in that dark space, the tall black shadow looked at the screen, and Shangming Dian, who was helping the Green Valley boy to get off the field, said slowly. He's really better than you, it's time for you to work hard. Quote. The same mummy-like dead-handled eyes hung through the white gloves on his face, took a deep breath a little depressed, and replied softly. I see. Quote. But no one knows what he thinks in his heart. In the medical room inside the Shangying Sports Hall, Shangming looked at the red and purple Midori Gu's right arm, frowned and asked, what is your sex, how can there be such a serious backlash? Ah, it's super weird, but the more powerful it is, the more difficult it is to control. Quote. The young man Midoriya who was lying on the hospital bed said with some embarrassment. But, all right, you go out first, I'm going to be treated. Quote. Just as Shangming wanted to ask further, the treatment girl on the side suddenly interjected and kicked him out of the medical room. Bang. Quote. Shangming looked at the door that was closed again, and had no choice but to shake his head helplessly, and then turned around and walked towards the audience, but in the corridor on the way, he was still thinking about Green Valley. I don't know why, but this Midoriya Izuku gives me the feeling that Izuku is getting closer and closer to that bold guess. Quote. Is he really? At the same time, the next battles are also going on one after another outside. In the fourth game, Iida Tenya of the Hero Section vs Fa Ming of the Support Division, the specific situation is exactly the same as the original book, and Iida is still won by Iida, who was completely played. But no matter how you look at it, the win is not very glorious, which also makes this eldest young master, who was born in a heroic family, feel extremely heavy and complicated. In the fifth game, Sana Ishido and Aoyama Grace, who are also in Class A of the Hero Division, well, needless to say, the more dexterous Ishido-san won. Although these two games are not as exciting as the first two, they are also interesting, and the atmosphere on the scene has reached its peak, and wave after wave of cheers is like a river of waves. Soon, a battle that was scorched by the roar, the boom, and the attention of several people was about to begin. Class A's constant darkness treading Yin vs B class roundfield is hard. In the simulation combat training in the past few months, it can be said that Chong Dark has performed very well, especially his peculiar personality ability, which is even more eye-catching. But because his own personality is very taciturn, they really don't know much about the personality of this Black Shadow. But one thing they all knew very well was that the Black Shadow was very strong in combat, whether it was speed, agility, or strength. Especially if you have wisdom yourself, this is even more difficult. Well, just as Shangming walked out of the corridor, he saw a person with his arms clasped on his chest, leaning against the corner of the wall and not knowing what he was thinking, but he was wrapped in shadows, and he was very incompatible with the excitement of the sun outside. Chapter 97. Seeing this person, Shangming temporarily suppressed his curiosity about Midori Valley, stepped forward with the most harmonious smile, and said hello. The heart. Kamito. Electrical. Leaning against the dark corner, the heart man slowly lifted up, looked at Shangming with a pair of inverted triangular eyes, he groaned for a moment, and asked softly after a moment. What's the deal with the electricity on you? From the perspective of Shinsao's line of sight, I saw that Shangming Electric was wrapped with messy golden current, which was obviously in a state of high-speed movement. Shangming looked down at himself, then raised his head and replied naturally, it's the basic operation of Shinkaojun. Quote. After all, to talk to you, you have to take a lot more risk than the average person. Quote. Oh, the Shinsao envoy heard the meaning of Shangming and raised his purple eyebrows. You mean, these currents in your body can make you feel comfortable talking to me? Shangming shrugged his shoulders disappreciatively and replied casually, it should be, after all, I haven't tried. Quote. Then try it. Quote. Shinsao said calmly, and then directly activated his personality, and the next second Shangming suddenly felt that his consciousness was dark, but he instantly regained consciousness. Circled.operator. Circled.operator. It's probably less than a second before and after. Shangming glanced at the time in the upper left corner of the big screen in the distance, and secretly pondered. Then he looked at the heart with some smugness. Well, my basic operation works. This is a correspondence technique that he has been pondering for a long time since he saw the personality of Shinsao for the second time before, and now he has the opportunity to get the experiment of the person concerned. Of course, he is happy. His idea is very simple, since he must be subjected to a certain impact to be released after being controlled, can he automatically release the control for himself through the electric current wrapped around the body and outside? After all, the so-called Electric current activated cells is actually to stimulate the body with an electric current, and one current stimulation may not be enough, but what about the stimulation of the whole body? That's right, whether it's high-speed movement or high-voltage electric shock, it has the passive effect of contacting the personality of the mind. Seeing this, Xin Cao couldn't help but smile bitterly. Sure enough, once my sex is known, it will be difficult to be effective. Quote. Although he had successfully controlled Liri Ochako before, he didn't take it as a model, it was just a rookie. Indeed, so I'm curious too, why are you participating in the sports festival? Shangming couldn't help but ask his doubts. If I had your sex, I would definitely hide it, and even if I used it, it would only be used at critical moments, as a killer weapon for a turnaround. Quote. It's impossible to participate in this kind of competition that shows off your personality and abilities to everyone. Quote. Hearing this, Xin Cao's eyes showed a little resentment, and the arms around his chest were lowered and his fists were clenched tightly. Do you think that everyone is like you, with a personality that seems to be favored by the heavens? Why am I stupid enough to participate in this sports festival? It's not because only by seizing this opportunity can I be transferred to the hero department. Because of my own personality, I have been left behind by others at the starting line. If I can't overtake in the corners of this sports festival, my dream and goal will never be realized. Speaking of this, Xin Cao unwillingly lowered his head and muttered to himself. His voice was low and soft, but it contained a thick anger. Also, a genius, like you, who is born with an honest personality, must not be able to understand such feelings. Quote. Shangming didn't refute anything, nor did he introduce his efforts in the past 10 years to him, because there was no point at all, and there was a suspicion of showing off. May I ask, when did you start to know that your personality was difficult to get into the hero department? Xin Cao glanced at Shangming strangely, and then pursed his lips and replied, when I was in the first country, in order to apply for Shangying after graduation, I learned about the information of Shangying's practical test. Quote. And what have you done in the past 3 years? Shangming put his right hand in his trouser pocket, looking at Chong Dark treading Yin and Yuanchang who had begun to fight below, but the words were said to Xin Cao. What have I done? Xin Cao was stunned for a moment, and then replied with some unhappiness, what can I do with my personality that is ineffective against robots? So, Shangming turned his head and looked at Xin Cao in a daze, and said lightly, after you knew your limitations, you didn't think about trying to make up for it at all, right? Quote. What you have been thinking about in the past 3 years should be to prepare for both, apply for the hero subject at the same time, apply for the general subject, and then at the annual sports festival, realize what you call corner overtaking. Quote. Yes, is there any other way than that? Xin Cao lowered his eyes, let himself return to the shadows again, and then asked softly, he didn't think his choice was wrong. Absolutely. Quote. Remembering the situation of the entrance exam, Kamime said, I remember that during the practical skill test, Shangying didn't seem to restrict us from using equipment, right? Yes. Xin Cao nodded. And the relevant rules can also be found on Shangying's official website, so you already knew about it 3 years ago, right? Yes, so what? The doubts in my mind are getting thicker and thicker, what the hell is this guy trying to say? Shangming once again put his eyes on the field, and at this time, Chong Dark's classmates completely had the upper hand, shattering one air shield after another, forcing the circle of Class B to continue to retreat. If I were you, I wouldn't waste those precious 3 years in vain, and I would find someone to practice swordsmanship, archery, etc., while studying my personality deeply. Quote. The former may only be able to do it behind closed doors, but isn't it easy for the latter? The streets are full of professional heroes, and it shouldn't be difficult to find someone who is good at swordsmanship or archery, right? Shangming retracted his gaze. It was really not interesting to fight this battle. The difference in strength between the two sides was too big, especially the one in Class B, who wasted such a good personality in vain. Since it is difficult for your own personality to be effective in the actual skill test, then use the bow and knife in your hand to get yourself a score for admission. Of course, I won't abandon that corner overtaking of yours, but I will only regard it as a final choice after hard work. After speaking, he looked at the hard exercise with a completely gloomy expression and made an ending. So in my opinion, you're just a guy who only talks about dreams and goals, and you never think about the word effort. Quote. There is no effort to talk about the goal, and an entrance exam will let you directly choose corner overtaking, so what should you do if you encounter a checkpoint in the future, and continue to corner overtaking? The mind makes people hang their heads and think. Whoa. At this time, the audience broke out into deafening cheers again. Well, Chong Dian stepped on the yin and easily forced the round out of the arena. Until the cheers gradually subsided, the sound of heart exercise sounded again. In the second round, I should have lost. Quote. Shangming nodded in agreement. After all, that booming boy was not comparable to Liri Yuchazi, and after knowing Shinsao's personality, there would be no surprises at all. Then he turned around and prepared to leave. To be honest, he was disappointed in his mind. He had a strange personality, when the voice came from behind him again. Finally, can I ask, is it too late for me to work hard? Kamime's footsteps paused and whispered back. I don't know, but I suggest you go to Aizawa-sensei, because he's the same type as you, just in terms of personality. Quote. Chapter 98. Yo, Shangming. As soon as Shangming walked to the area where Class A was located, Tai Jie, who had been looking around for him, spotted him for the first time, and pointed to the seat next to him, and said with a smile. No, I've got you a front row seat. That's great, I'm looking forward to the next battle, it's Bang Hao. Quote. Shangming greeted Erlang, 8 million and the others, and walked over to Tai Jie's side, then looked around and said secretly. Has Bang Hao gone down already? That's right. Quote. At this time, Kirishima, who was sitting in the back row of him, asked everyone with some curiosity, who of you knows what kind of personality is that Shiozaki of Class B? Ishido, Frogbuki and the others looked at each other, and after a moment they shook their heads tacitly, but at this moment, the head of the Monoma Ninto of Class B suddenly appeared on the left wall. No, you Class A are really unpopular, and you don't even know the personality of the opponent of the hero department. Don't think that you've fought with the enemy, so arrogant. Quote. At this time, the squad leader of Class B, Kazuka Kento, couldn't look at it, sighed, and walked over and grabbed the black face of the object. I'm sorry, everyone. Quote. But, after apologizing, Kazuka Kento turned his head to look at Tatsumi Shiozaki, who came out of the dark corridor, and prompted, she's very strong, very strong. Quote. Perhaps, but, Bang Hao should be on top of it. Shangming's gaze was on the expressionless Bang Hao on the other side, because I have personally experienced his strength. On the other side, under the cheers of the audience and the passionate explanation of the gift microphone teacher, he officially stepped on the cement field. Subconsciously glanced at the audience, who were also looking at him. Shangming and Bang scorching, and somehow suddenly appeared in his mind. A strong second kill, a wonderful victory, which aroused a strong disbelief from Bang Hao. This time he must win vigorously. I will never lose to them, I am the strongest in Class A. At this time, the voice of the gift microphone teacher resounded throughout the Shangying Sports Hall again, and the audience's mood was excited again because of the appearance of Bang Hao. The howitzer that exploded in the horse battle before, they still remember it vividly. If only I could do that trick again. Yes, such an earth-shattering explosion, it's really exciting. Don't think about it, even if Bang Hao can do it again, he won't do that, after all. The opponent is a delicate girl. Quote. Indeed, although it looks irritable, a student who is also a volunteer hero should not do such an excessive thing, right? Yes, the power of that howitzer, except for the Shangming Electric and the Boom Scorch, no one should be able to catch it. Quote. That's not right, that Midoritani Izuku is also very strong, and the power of that punch is not a joke. At this time, Mr. Microphone announced, start, again, and the discussion gradually quieted down. Well, watch the game, watch the game. If you want to win vigorously, then. With a wolf-like and tyrannical look, Bang Hao glared fiercely at Shiozaki Su, who exuded a saint-like temperament all over his body. Use the maximum directly and kill the other party. Bang, boom, boom, boom. In the next second, with excellent bounce power, he quickly jumped into the air, and at the same time, his hands burst out in the opposite direction of the left and right. Then, using the reaction force, he spun at high speed while rushing towards Shiozaki Taji, who turned around inexplicably, and at this moment his figure completely disappeared from people's sight. Instead, a whirlwind flame swirls horizontally. An exploding version of the tooth to the teeth. Shangming was stunned and looked at it in shock and complained frantically in his heart, exploding this sex, can it really be used like this? Using the air wave of the explosion, let yourself rotate steadily at high speed, and drive the high-temperature smoke and dust around you, which is not a joke in terms of explosion intensity, angle and other aspects. The reason is very simple. If you talk about the instability and the difficulty of control, this explosion is obviously above the thunder and lightning. Does this guy really do these things, or does he do them out of talent? Shangming Electric must mainly rely on micro-operation technology, while Bang Jiao Jelly relies on pure bloodline qualification. Then Bang Hao has the meaning of both, or it is said that with his innate fighting talent, he has the characteristics of both. But at this moment, the B-class next to him couldn't sit still. It was really too loud to blow the Hao, and no matter how you look at it, it gives people a feeling of extreme danger. Tasuki Wasaki. Come on. Stop him. Block that nasty bastard with your Vineman. In fact, Shiozaki did the same. She turned around for nothing else, just to root her hair in front of her. Then use his personality, Vine, to constantly regenerate the thorny green hair cut out, and launch a surging, branch C tactic, against Bang Hao. Seriously, judging from the viewing effect, it's almost the same as the Ice Swarm attack that blasts the Scorch. Of course, because of the difference in levels, the scale is much smaller. But even so, it's enough to fill the concrete arena. However, Shiozaki was shocked to find that his sea of vines that covered the sky couldn't stop the black smoke vortex at all, let alone get entangled in anything. Every time countless vines approached from the four directions of up, down, left, right, and over, they were either blown apart by the surging waves of air generated by the explosion, or burned into residues by the surging heat. Tenka. In the presiding room, Aizawa squinted his eyes and whispered. Bang Hao's personality is biased towards the combustion system, and even the black smoke produced has an extremely high temperature, which is completely the natural enemy of the personality of the planting species. Quote. Coupled with the gap in their own strength. In a head-on battle, Shiozaki's disadvantage is a matter of course. Quote. Raiden bastard. Half of the bastards. You two have opened my eyes wide to see clearly, this is my biggest limit. Bang Hao looked at the thick green wall in front of him that was formed by a large number of vines, and his heart erupted with a roar that was no less powerful than the power of the howitzer. I'm a hero, and I'm not weaker than you. Never. Howitzer super explosive. Before the words fell, the explosion power on his right hand, which had almost condensed to the extreme, was slammed against the green vine wall, with surging rotational power in an instant. Boom. How to describe this explosion? The situation on the concrete floor is temporarily invisible, because it is shrouded in thick black smoke that cannot be seen. But the scorching wave of air set off really staggered the audience, and even suffocated people. Obviously, there is air between the mouth and nose, but Leng can't take a breath, but the breath is blocked by the turbulent air. The hat on the head, the things that were not grasped in the hands, etc., were blown directly into the air, and then went straight to the sky in a circle. The aftermath of the explosion lasted for nearly a dozen seconds before it gradually stabilized, but the audience was already in disarray, and there were debris all over the place. When the dark smoke cleared, only Bang Hao stood alone in the huge round pit, hanging his trembling right arm. There was no cement around him for a long time, it was all charred dirt, and the entire cement arena was turned upside down. Huh, where's that girl? No, this guy is too much. Yes, with such a heavy hand on a girl, is he really a volunteer hero? That's right, did he want to kill Shiozaki? Class B's Mono Manene shouted angrily. At this time he was really disgusted with Blasto. At the same time, regardless of the many viewers in the audience, there was even more scolding on the barrage on the internet, but this time Aizawa did not exit the siege like the original work. Because he also feels that it is a little too much, although it is correct to say that it is correct to respect the opponent to give it his all, but this is obviously beyond the scope of going all out. This is an overrun explosion that goes beyond the limit, and if Shiozaki is really involved in the explosion, he will be 100% killed on the spot. As the party concerned, Bang Hao was completely disdainful of the overwhelming accusations, and his eyes were still on Shangming and Bang Scorching. I am the one who will eventually surpass Armit and become the strongest hero. Aizawa glanced out of the field. Shiozaki was standing there at this time, and in front of him was the class guide of Class B. But it's okay. The previous measures came in handy. Quote. Just now, it was this teacher who used his personality to turning his own blood into a rope and pulling her to her side at the last moment. Then use blood to create a blood-red defensive wall in front of the two of them. It seems that when the second round of Shangming Electric and Bank Scorching Jelly fights, I'll have to go down and watch it myself, or let Armit go. Quote. Otherwise, something really will happen. Thinking of this, Aizawa got up from his seat, and then silently walked to the door, which made the gift microphone teacher ask strangely. Hey, what are you going to do? Find the principal. Quote. Chapter 99. Tai J, Kirishima, you just exploded Hao's move, are you confident in your personality next? Shangming looked at Bang Hao, who refused to help the handling robot in the field, stubbornly supported his tired body, and slowly walked into the corridor, and asked softly. Quote. Quote. Tai J was silent. Quote. Quote. Kirishima was silent. Although their personalities are extremely strong, it does not mean that they do not have a limit of resistance, and if they exceed this limit, they will still be injured or even killed. I can't take it, right? Quote. Shangming didn't hear a reply, and continued to say in the eyes of all Class A people, then I think it's time for you to think about it. Quote. Think about how to deal with this super powerful attack. Tetsujay and Kirishima glanced at each other, and after a while, Kirishima's face suddenly showed a heroic smile, and at the same time he subconsciously touched his specially dyed red hair. For me, there is only one road in the future, and that is to continue to strengthen the hardness, and I am only willing to take this route. It's like that top, hardcore, hero, Hong Lai. If you are not hard enough, then make yourself harder, hard enough to withstand all attacks. After speaking, he looked at Tai J, who had always been similar to himself. You're like that too, aren't you? Quote. But Tetsu was silent. If it was his answer before, it would definitely be exactly the same as Kurithama. But after getting to know Kamime and Daimon Sensei, his thinking began to change a little, and he no longer blindly focused on strength and defense. Instead, they began to put more thought into technology and attack. Hey, Tai J, didn't you tell me that you were going to compete with me for the title of the strongest, hardcore, hero in the future? Kirishima asked aloud, a little unacceptably. At first, when Tai J wanted to compete with him, it did make him a little unhappy, but after thinking about it carefully, he was extremely happy that he could have a fellow traveler. But now this guy Tai J is silent. What does he mean? Has he given up on the hard way? If that's the case, then Rujiro Kirishima looks down on such a bastard. To become the strongest, hard, hero, you don't have to have the strongest, hardness, the overall, strong, is more important. Quote. Tetsujay's eyes became firm, and he stood up and said calmly to Kirishima. I will never give you the strongest, hardcore, hero, but the path I am going to take is different from your path. Quote. Nonsense. Kirishima was furious, his neck was bruised, and he directly reached out and grabbed Tai J's collar, and even subconsciously used his personality. What's the toughest hero, without the strongest hardness? You remembered to me that no matter what kind of personality you have, there is only one road, if you want to take the hard road, and that is to constantly strengthen the hardness. This is verified by Hong Lai Shangdu himself. Bang! Click! Tai J, who was steeled, squeezed Che Dao's hand with his iron hand, and at the same time looked at him unabashedly, and said resolutely. I'm going to take my own toughest path, not the red guy. After speaking, he directly shook off Che Dao's hand, and then turned around and walked directly out of the audience, and the next battle was the battle between the two of them. Come, I'll show you my way. Click. Kirishima's personality has always been cheerful, but when it comes to this kind of principle, he really doesn't want to give in at all, and how can he just want to let things like road? He clenched his fists with all his might, making a screeching sound of metal crashing, and quickly followed, his furious expression worrying those around him. Quote. Kirishima, Ishido-sana shouted, but was directly interrupted by Kirishima. There is only one hard road. He can choose to follow his own path, but he is never allowed to call it hard, and the word hard must and can only be used to refer to the road created by Hong Lai Shangdu. After speaking, he walked directly inside and went to his own exit corridor. Kamime, they're not going to have an accident, are they? Asked Erlang worriedly. It's true that these two people are completely opposed, especially Kirishima, who looks really angry. 8,000,000 said. Don't worry, there will be 3 teachers watching during the battle. Shangming comforted them a few words, and then looked at the audience expectantly. He secretly said in his heart, "This is the so-called battle of faith." Quote. But to be honest, he agrees with Tai Jie's words more, and it is extremely strong, which really does not match his style. But what is the way in Tai Jie's mouth? It's so funny. Soon, the cement field destroyed by Bang Hao before became complete and clean again under the repair of the teacher of the cement division. At the same time, the words of the microphone teacher sounded again. The 8th race of the first round is a strong matchup of the personality completely crashing group. Then a photo of the two vs appeared on the screen, and the interesting thing is that the cheering posture of these two people is exactly the same. Manly and tenacious steel. Battle. Completely hard and full of manhood. However, for his repetitive passionate introduction, Tetsujie and Kirishima did not say anything at all, but the atmosphere between the two was extremely stiff. Kirishima's eyes were full of anger, while Tetsuchi's eyes were calm and determined. Start. Bang. You have to be in awe of the hardcore way, and the red light fight. Kirishima, who hardened his arms, took the lead in raising his hard fist and rushed towards Tetsujie, while saying loudly in anger. Bang. Tai Jie, who also exerted his personality and steeled his whole body, also met it decisively without fear. Of course, I respect him, but I made the right choice. Under the excited onlookers of 120,000 spectators at the scene, these two hot-blooded teenagers who insisted on their respective beliefs, roared and waved their fists at the same time. Bang! The two fists, one white and one black, collided violently in midair, and the strength of the two of them even caused exaggerated sparks to rub between the fists. There is no distinction between superior and inferior in strength. The microphone teacher picked up the microphone excitedly and shouted, and the audience also screamed in tacit understanding. The battle between men is really the most exciting. On the other side, as soon as Kirishima's and Tetsuchi's fists separated, Kirishima, who was full of anger, threw his fist again. Isn't this still the real, hardcore way? Then let you experience the same, my way. As soon as the words fell, Tetsujie suddenly made a judo move, calmly watched Kirishima pounce, and then when the other party was less than 2 meters away from him, he moved. I saw Tetsujie's right foot slide into front of the inside of Kirishima's right leg, and at the same time, his whole body sank slightly, and turned to the front of the inside of his left foot. At the same time, he flashed his fist attack with his side head, and then supported Kirishima's left armpit with his right hand, and the whole person gently leaned against his chest. Then he exerted his strength in the waist, and directly followed the force of the attack from the island, threw his whole person high, and finally fell the concrete floor in front of him. Bang! The back of the hard island had just come into contact with the ground, and the concrete, which had looked extremely smooth, cracked apart as if it had turned into a tofu block in an instant. Tai Jie exhaled a white breath, looked at the shocked Kirishima under him, and said firmly, "Combine skill, strength, and hardness to achieve overall strength. I cannot have the strongest hardness, but I will have the strongest combat power. Kirishima, you have made it clear to me that I am taking the road of the toughest, not the hardest." Chapter 100. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, the 120,000 spectators were silent, stunned to look at the construction site like arena, and every time a huge crash sounded, their hearts would involuntarily tremble. It's miserable. Kurijima. Minoru Mineta covered his eyes with his hands in some panic, his little heart was already a little unbearable. Ishido Sana nodded heavily, then turned his head a little unbearably and asked Kamina, when did Tetsutsu learn judo? It's been a few months. Quote. Kamina looked expressionlessly at Kirishima, who had been thrown to the ground dozens of times, but stood up again, and replied softly. He suddenly found that there seemed to be few ordinary people in Class A, and almost everyone had what they insisted on. Izuku Midoriya, Bang Jiaoji, Bang Hao Katsuji, Iida Amaya, Ozero Monkey, Koji Kuchida, Rujiro Kurijima, Tetsu. These children, with an average age of only 15 years old, almost all of them gave him more or less touched and amazed. Hey, what's going on? When did this guy learn judo? He's just throwing the island like a sandbag. The microphone teacher's surprise was heard through the speaker, and his words were echoed by everyone. Isn't it a humanoid sandbag? Damn. Kirishima, who was in tattered sportswear and looked extremely embarrassed, hammered the ground that had already been cracked, and stood up again and rushed forward. I don't approve of it. Never recognized. This road of yours is not a hardcore road at all. Fueled by his anger, Kirishima once again used his hardening personality to attack Tetsutsu, but this time, he began to pay attention to Tetsutsu's movements, intentionally or unintentionally. Calm down, calm down. Every move he makes is exactly the same, which means that the judo he is good at is probably the same move. This time, Kirishima turned his fist into a palm and swung a palm knife like steel and iron, just to prevent him from being caught at close range again. I have to say that he was really carried away by anger before, or his own thinking was a little simple. Therefore, after being thrown more than 20 times, I began to think about these things. HMPH, it's over. I saw that Tai-J did not take the previous judo posture again this time, but stepped forward with a few big strides and jumped up directly, and at the same time kicked up with an iron leg. What? Kirishima was shocked. He didn't expect Tetsu to not move this time and change his feet, which made him realize that something was wrong for the first time, and was ready to turn his palm into a fist and cross in front of him. But there is a saying, fantasy is beautiful, reality is cruel. Before he could stop his palm attack, he was driven straight into by a long steel leg, although he also slashed a few white marks and sparks along the way. In the end, he was hit in the chest by the sole of his foot, and in the next second, a huge force erupted on him, directly kicking him into the air. Puff! Heavy objects fell into their bodies, bringing up puffs of dust, including gifts and microphone teachers. All of them fell silent, but their eyes were staring directly at Tai-J, who slowly retracted his right leg. I'm sorry, but in addition to judo, I also have strong legs, or it takes longer to train your legs than to practice judo. Tai-J stood on the field with his chest held high, and the brilliant golden sun became the most gorgeous background behind his head. Then he slowly moved his gaze from Kirishima, who was breathless for a while and couldn't stand up for a long time, to Shangming on the stage. And the eyes of the two of them met in the air. This guy, you're challenging me. Shangming raised his eyebrows, and a handsome smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. And the scene where they sparked looking at each other was captured by a very lucky cameraman, and then played on the big screen by the backstage command staff for the first time. Although we are partners and friends, I still want to beat you in the finals. I'm the most qualified partner only if I don't lose to you, don't I? Shangming electric. Tai-J thought so in his heart. Wonderful. Tetsu-J and Kirishima showed us a really tough and exciting battle. But what I'm trying to say here is, Tetsuch, karate seems to be more suitable for your Iron Man than judo. The microphone teased loudly. I'm not an Iron Man, I'm a Colossus. Tetsu raised his head to the present microphone above him and replied casually, then walked over to Kirishima, who had recovered his breath and was about to stand up, and stretched out his right hand. Kirishima. Quote. Kirishima looked at the hand in front of him and fell silent, which also made the audience quiet again, especially the students in Class A who were even more nervous. After all, everyone is in the same class, and if there is really a lot of trouble, then no one will be happy. Smack. At this time, Kirishima stretched out his left hand and held Tetsu-J's right hand strongly, and then stood up with Tetsu-J's help. Although I still don't agree with your approach, this time I did lose. But you remembered for me that the next time you win must be me. In an authentic, hardcore way. Tai-J didn't refute, and laughed heartily. Okay, I'll wait for you. After speaking, under the cheers of 120,000 spectators, the two walked into the corridor side by side, which also made Shangming once again feel like watching Hot Blood. It's like a live-action anime, and I even feel like I've heard some kind of BGM. At midnight on the stage, the teacher twisted his waist excitedly, and covered his red cheeks with his hands very exaggeratedly. It's so green. She likes this childish, innocent, romantic picture of youth the most, and every time she sees it, she will feel excited. Well, she is the main audience of Japanese youth TV dramas. Phew, great, the two of them finally didn't really break up. Leary Ochako patted the mountain peaks that were beginning to take shape, and said with palpitations. Cut, I'm bored. Bakuho touched his right arm, which had returned to normal under the personality of the restored girl, and at the same time looked at Kirishima's back very unpleasantly. This chicken nest head actually lost. Expected results, after all. Tieja's sweat and hard work are all on the island. Shangming said lightly. God rewards hard work, it's not an empty word. Huh. Bang Hao's expression instantly turned into a shark face, and he slammed back viciously, "Look how I blow up that steel bastard in a while." Huh. Kamito shrugged his shoulders. However, I was really worried about Tai J in my heart. After all, judging from the order of the game, Tai J would really meet this guy in the back. Ka-chan, okay, don't, like that, the Midoriya boy persuaded in a good voice, his tone and expression looking like coaxing a rebellious child. Bang Hao hated Green Valley the most, so he directly shifted the muzzle of the gun and said angrily, "It's noisy, shut up, it stinks for a long time. It's our turn next." At this time, the 8,000,000 who were sitting in the front row of Shangming suddenly stood up, and then looked at the Erlang Shangshang who was sitting on the right side of Shangming. "Erlang, I'll do my best." The tone of this wealthy lady is full of seriousness. Of course, Erlang also stood up and looked straight into the past without fear, while Shangming, who was caught in the middle, faintly felt that fierce sparks were constantly flashing in front of his eyes. But for some reason, he always felt that there was more than just a desire for victory in his eyes. Is it my delusion? Shangming looked at the 8,000,000, and then at Erlang, thinking a little inexplicably. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.